Good morning. And once again, we get at it. It is 56 degrees already. It's not going to be as warm as yesterday, though. We're going to get up around 65. We'll probably kiss 70 again. But right now, it is not clear. We have broken clouds on this Tuesday, March 10, 2020. We'll be back with the weather in a little while. But once again, it's 56 right now under broken clouds. Our headlines this morning. A total of 142 coronavirus cases here in New York. We're up to 98 in Westchester. There was some confusion about whether or not the New Rochelle schools will be closed. They are not closed. The governor inadvertently made an announcement to the contrary. We'll have the list of all the other schools that are closed. A WestMed healthcare provider in White Plains tests positive, and a fire at Breakneck Ridge. After multiple agencies work through the day, it still burns. Stay right there. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. Let's look at that weather right now. The weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. Exclusively by them, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. Well, as much as it's 6:56 and going to get up to 65 today, and it's warm in here in the studio by the train station. It'll be cloudy, though, later on with rain late in the day. The temperature will be 65. The wind out of the southwest, 10 to 20 miles an hour. Tonight, partly cloudy, 42 degrees. Sunshine tomorrow again, followed by increasing clouds, though, getting up to the mid-50s, maybe even 60. Thursday, partly sunny, a high of 54 degrees. And as we wrap around into Friday, it's going to chill a little bit. It's going to be, 60. That's not too bad, but overnight low getting down to 38 degrees. Let's get to those top stories right now. And actually, we're going to start out with the New Rochelle schools because many of you are going to wonder, should we send the kids to school today? And the answer is yes. Public schools in New Rochelle are remaining open. This out of News 12 and Aloha today. They're remaining open despite the coronavirus outbreak affecting the Hudson Valley and the state. Governor Andrew Cuomo called New Rochelle a significant hotspot, no surprise to you now, for the virus, and spoke about closing the schools possibly for weeks. The Centers for Disease Control has recommended that schools be closed as the virus continues to spread throughout Westchester, but school board president Amy Maselli said she wants to wait and see what will happen with the outbreak, and we quote her here, "We can't make a decision based on fear. The city school district of New Rochelle is a very large and complex enterprise, and if the decision is based on fear, we will be making knee-jerk reactions to a situation that demands a high level of contemplation and respect." And right now, she says the schools are sticking to the district preparation plan. It states that it is a priority to keep the schools open. And for those of you not familiar with New Rochelle, it's a pretty big district, 11,000 students. Now we'll cover the schools that are closed. For those of you listening outside of this area, and we are a national show now, so but nonetheless with a focus on what's local. And to that end, these are the schools that are closed. Pardon me, the Harvey School. All classes and after-school activities have been canceled for the rest of the week from March 10 to March 13. That is the Harvey School. There are no confirmed cases of the virus. However, in Port Chester, all Port Chester schools will begin with a 2-hour delay today, that's March 10, to allow the district to prepare for alternative learning opportunities for their students. Scarsdale Public Schools will be closed through March 18 after a middle school faculty member tested positive for the coronavirus. The district posted this on the website on Sunday night. Somers Central School District will be closed, it was closed yesterday after a parent of a Primrose Elementary School student tested positive for the coronavirus. And right now, it remains thus. East Ramapo. The East Ramapo Central School District will be closed Tuesday. 3 students who attended Ramapo High School, Pomona Middle School, and Hempstead Elementary School tested positive for the virus. And those 3 schools will be closed until March 21st. Iona College of New Rochelle is canceling all classes for the rest of the week, effective 10 p.m. last night. Out of an abundance of caution, staff and administrative offices will remain open this week. The school spring break is scheduled for March 16 through 20. All events planned on Iona's campus between March 10 and 23rd will be canceled. It is 6:38. The Masters School in Dobbs Ferry, which serves residential and day students in grades 5 through 12, has canceled classes this week because of the rapidly increasing number of COVID-19 cases in the area. Annunciation School, a Catholic elementary school in Crestwood, is closed, yesterday and today, because one of its students has been close to someone who tested positive for the virus. We're moving out of Mount Pleasant Cottage School. The Mount Pleasant Cottage Union Free School District, which serves residential and day students as at Eatonwald School and Cottage School, is closed. It was closed actually yesterday. They're not sure about today. The private Jewish school in White Plains, called Westchester Torah, is closed until March 16th. The private day school in Mamaroneck, the Westchester Day School, will be closed until March 17th. And let's see who's closing for the remainder of the school year. The private Keough Academy of New York in Purchase is closing for the remainder of the school year over virus concerns. And we got word today that some other colleges, John's University for one, is encouraging students to take their courses online as we come up now on 6:40. And in terms of a summary for what's going on, we will get to that now. It's amazing how the cases are growing, but nonetheless, this was to be expected. This out of Lohud this morning. The New York State, our New York State, is now up to 142 cases of the virus, including 98 here alone in Westchester County, 19 in New York City, 17 in Nassau, and in Rockland, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and just a couple in Rockland, according to Governor Andrew Cuomo. There are also 2 cases in Saratoga County and 1 each in Suffolk and Ulster. Meanwhile, Westchester, that's us, has 16 new positive tests since Sunday. Cuomo spoke about steps to control the outbreak, and again, he's still focused on New Rochelle, and obviously concerned about that. But again, Westchester, we and most of it focused here in New Rochelle, has 82 cases, and the other extreme is Ulster County having 1. Now, there are about 7 private labs that could come online and do automated testing for the virus immediately instead of manually, which is how tests are currently being done. Once again, the governor is calling on the CDC to allow more testing by private companies. 1 lab came online yesterday, and hopefully the governor's pleas will be heard. A healthcare provider who practices at WestMed Medical Group in White Plains tested positive for the coronavirus. According to a spokesman for the medical group, the provider practices at 210 Westchester Avenue in White Plains, and they are working on deciding who should be quarantined, etc. The Department of Health has told WestMed no additional provider staff or patients need to be quarantined beyond the immediate persons involved. As we go to other news, several fires continue to burn in the area of Breakneck Ridge after a day, which was yesterday, of course, which multiple agencies spent hours battling the blaze, according to the New York State Office of Park and Recreation. Now, this is up in Dutchess. The brush fire in that junction area forced Route 9D to be closed for portions of the evening hours yesterday and caused delays on Metro North and so forth. The fire on Breakneck and Hudson Highlands, a state park, was reported at 2:30 p.m. Again, it continues to burn. The Galleria Mall is over the hill, so says a story in Lohud, something those who shop there kind of know. The once immensely popular mall turns 40 this summer with a growing number of vacancies and a future that's hanging in the air, but more than a dozen darkened storefronts in the Galleria serve as a harbinger of the decline of brick-and-mortar retail across the country. And Mayor Tom Roach is saying that the mall owners are working towards changing the types of businesses and the things that draw customers there, and that they are working on a plan to increase patronage at that mall. Meanwhile, a story that keeps growing, it kind of just popped up and is falling behind perhaps the coronavirus story a little bit locally, but more than 24 horse racing trainers, veterinarians, and drug suppliers were arrested earlier in the week in a wide-ranging doping scheme. This, according to federal prosecutors, announced yesterday and published in Lohud and other outlets today. The accused include Jason Service, trainer of the horse Maximum Security that finished first in last year's Kentucky Derby, but was disqualified due to illegal contact with another horse. Now, between 2018 and February 2020, Service's horses ran in 1,082 races, including Belmont, where in October Maximum Security won. And the reason we mention this is that story is likely to make a lot more news in the coming weeks. So to the extent that the virus doesn't take us off, take it off the front pages. And just some notes about sports before we get into other issues. Michael Conforto, the Met great home run rookie, this young man, is headed to the disabled list. Again, they're not sure how serious his injury is, but this is a page right out of the Yankees book because Conforto, again, the Yankees have many people who are injured. Conforto was sent back to New York. Isn't it interesting that he needs an MRI, and rather they don't have any MRIs in Florida. They got more people going to the doctor in Florida than they have people than the population of Greece. You don't have an MRI down there? I guess they want their own doctors to take a look at that. And again, one of the things you're going to be hearing in the next few days, the National Hockey League, the NBA, Major League Baseball, they're all working out plans should the virus increase. The one thing that they've already agreed on is no one but essential persons will be allowed in locker rooms. And I guess that includes the press. They'll have to, I guess, behind a door or a screen wall or a glass wall, they'll have to do their increase. But they're limiting the number of people who go to those in those locker rooms after the games and during the games. Only essential personnel. The other issue, because TV is such a factor now in the economics of sports, they're actually planning, if it's necessary, to perform or to have the games, to play the games, to empty stadiums or arenas at this point, if they have to, because it's the TV contracts that they day in, day out. Not that they don't want the gate receipts, particularly a game like hockey where gates are a big part of their revenue, but it's a big part of all the revenue, but nothing even beats broadcasting. So anyway, we'll be keeping an eye on that. Imagine if all we get to do is watch a game on TV with no crowds. Now, the great LeBron James has already said, he wouldn't want to do it, but he will be contractually obligated to if it comes to that. But there are many who believe that that's the future of sports, and maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually it will just be a TV show nonetheless. And the Post put a great picture, and I tore it off badly, but look at this, just the empty stadium, the empty feeling, and that's exactly what they're talking about. Number of other stories and things going on locally. We're going to cover those in just a couple of minutes and open up the phones. It is 5:47, and we do have to. It is absolutely necessary to go back to the weather. For those of you just joining us, Bob, what day is it? I'm just waking up. I can't even see straight. My God, it's still dark out. What about daylight savings time? Well, it puts the sun at the other end of the day. It'll be sunny like through 6:30 tonight. But anyway, it is Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station here in the heart of New Rochelle. And what has become a less, not empty, it's not a ghost town, but a less busy train station than what we are used to. And many of you are listening right now on or watching on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Periscope. We're available on iTunes, iHeartRadio. For people who are Bluetoothing us and listening in their cars, you're going to MyTuner Radio, RadioWestchester.com, or Mornings with Bob Marrone. All are welcome. Let's get to the weather. It is already 56, and it's warm in here because it was warm all day yesterday. And I'm going to have to crawl under a table here and turn the heat off completely. We'll get as low as 43 tonight, by the way. Broken clouds right now. The wind will be out of the southwest 10 to 20. Now, tonight, partly cloudy. Again, the temperature getting down to 42. On into Wednesday, sunshine followed by increasing clouds. 56 degrees, the mean temperature. Thursday, partly sunny. A high will be 54. The overnight low will be 39. Friday, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The high, 59 degrees. And just somewhere along the line, I thought I saw rain. Yes, cloudy with rain late in the day today. I think I forgot to tell you that. And of course, the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And of course, the bottom of the hour is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.org. Now they tell us aging issues management, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and plug-in virtual reality. Welcome to the program. All right, you almost can't make this up. You remember yesterday, and we were quite agitated about it. There was a story, a couple of days old, of course, about a violent mob kicking and beating up a girl, like 12 or 15 kids. Joined, didn't even know who they were angry at, and decided to go in and kick the hell out of somebody, literally. Stomp on them and everything else and steal their sneakers. Well, a second group now, a group of teens pounced on a woman in Brooklyn and beat her brutally before stealing the Air Jordan sneakers right off her feet. We knew that. But this is the second one. Just days after a similar robbery less than a mile away. The 26-year-old woman in this case, not a teenager, was jumped by at least 8 men near the intersection of Patchen Avenue and Bainbridge Street in Bedford-Stuyvesant around 4 a.m. The gang, all in their late teens to 20s, stomped, punched, and kicked her in the head and body before robbing her of her purse, wallet, and the pricey basketball shoes. She was taken to Interfaith Medical Center with cuts and bruises before being brought to Brookdale and later released. This savage beating comes after a group of teenagers in nearby Crown Heights on Thursday pummeled and stomped the 15-year-old that we mentioned earlier. 11 alleged attackers, all males between 14 and 17, except one 14-year-old girl, have been charged in that horrific caught-on-camera incident. Now, where do we go with this? Do we pretend it didn't happen? Do we pretend that we don't have a problem with our young people in some of our city's neighborhoods? Do we not report it because somebody says, oh, no, you're only doing stories where black kids do it, or you're only doing stories where Asian kids do it? No, we do the stories where the stories are. What the hell, and I don't mind saying, what the hell is wrong with the culture of these children? And I leave it at that. I have nothing more to say. It's just troubling. All right. Now we've got the PA chief getting sick. The head of the Port Authority, who oversees local airports, bridges, tunnels, and seaports, has the coronavirus. Yep. Governor Cuomo said Monday as a state infection toll soared to 35%. We knew that already. He didn't say when or how the PA executive director, Rick Cotton, may have contracted the potentially deadly bug, but noted that he has been at airports, obviously, when many people were coming back with the virus. And this is just the way it is. This is the price you pay for being a public servant. Nurses are going to get it. Doctors are going to get it. And we should appreciate them the same way that we have, and rightly so, appreciated firemen for saving us, policemen and women for saving us, firemen and women, by the way, for going in when everyone else is coming out. You know, we tend to take for granted that doctors and nurses and ER nurses, that they risk their lives every day when they deal with infectious diseases. Now, that's what they signed up for. And soon enough, we're going to see health department workers who are going out and testing people, who are going into homes and helping people. They are going to be in that same kind of potential hero status. And for what it's worth, we here at Radio Westchester thank them. And wish them nothing but the best. Now, a couple of things. I went into Staples last night, and they had a big sign on the door. Please, we have no more water. We have no more this. We have no more that. But what's interesting is now, I guess I'm going to do a favor for the dollar stores. A lot of people are, all right, don't go in dollar stores. They've got plenty of water. So if you need bottled water, and if you're going to be quarantined, you do, I get it. Although our water's fine, the tap water's fine. But there's this race for that. There's this race for Purell and everything else. Well, the good news is the state is going to make its own. State prison inmates are now working to combat the virus. Governor Cuomo on Monday unveiled what he called a crucial new weapon against price gougers taking advantage of coronavirus fears, a superior hand sanitizing product by New York prisoners. The product, and it's in a little black and white can with a little white cap on it. And they're calling it a superior brand of hand sanitizers. The product, dubbed New York State's Clean, is not only better and less expensive than brands made by commercial businesses, but it'll be ready available to local governments shortly. So you will have your hand sanitizer. Now, somewhere here, I had my news summary for the day, and we need to go there. Now, get this. This is pretty funny. Avery Soda has released a new beverage capitalizing on the viral outbreak, and it's called Coronavirus Cocktail. Any event that ever happens, people are going to use it as an excuse to make money as we come up on 6:54. Now, here's what they found out. While most of the fatalities from the virus were in older people, this doesn't mean that the age in and of itself is the risk factor. If you have a compromised immune system or asthma, those things, you still should be a little careful. Now, the president is mulling over a number of different things, including so that the economy won't take as vicious a hit as some feared. In fact, today we should point out that the futures are up 1,000 points. And those of us who've worked on Wall Street many, many years know the market always comes back, unless the fundamentals are so bad, and they're not. So the market does always come back. We're going to see a correction today. The futures are already up 1,000 points. But again, it's going to go up and down. This is roller coaster time, I would expect. So be patient with the stock market. And as I counseled a friend yesterday, now I've not been in the business a long time, but the market, there are actually people who are experts. My brother's one, quite frankly, who chart the market, which is to say that they spot trends just by taking a ruler and looking at the peaks and valleys. So what you're going to see during times of uncertainty is trends. It'll either trend down or it'll trend upward. So don't panic and react each and every time the market bursts up or down during troubling times. Look at the trend. Look at each day. Look at the direction in which it is heading. So the president's also mulling a payroll tax. He's looking to see if maybe that's necessary for a while, lessen that. Also, the question is whether or not tests will be paid for and so forth. So the president's looking into a number of these. Now, there are people who when they get the virus, by the way, they're symptom-free for 5 days. So I could be sitting here right now and totally infected but not feeling it. But then there are a number of people who test positive and have no symptoms at all or just get a little runny nose. Again, as we said, locker rooms. And what did I leave out? Yes, Major League Soccer. We already told you about that. Florida, travelers from hard-hit coronavirus areas must self-isolate. Florida health officials amended their travel advisory yesterday, saying visitors returning from the country's hardest hit must self-isolate for 14 days. Also, your cell phone. You leave that out, you touch it with your fingers, you put your fingers to your face. Apple has updated its iPhone cleaning guidelines. Even Apple isn't immune to the coronavirus. The iPhone maker on Monday updated its website with instructions for cleaning Apple devices, giving customers the okay to use alcohol wipes as the viral epidemic continues to grow around the world, using a 70% isopropyl alcohol wipe or Clorox disinfectant wipes. Now, just a little secret. If you go to Costco, one of those places, if you go over to if you're really that concerned about, I can't get wipes, I can't get Purell. Well, they have those wipes that they give you a couple of bucks. In fact, they probably increase the price knowing the gouging things that go on. But you get those eyeglass wipes. They are isopropyl alcohol, and they can also do the trick as well. But a flu shot won't protect you from the coronavirus, but it could better prepare the U.S. Health experts say getting a flu shot could help prevent Americans from catching a flu strain that weakens the body and makes them more susceptible, which is to say that if you've gotten your flu shot, You probably won't get the flu, because imagine if you have the flu and then you get this thing. You may not see it through. So please be aware of that. Now, I had an interplay last night with a colleague. In fact, the guy who really coached me in my radio career. And he always gives me this good advice. And he says, geez, I hope you're being the voice of reason. And I'd like to think we have been. And that's why we put politics aside. I think one of the things the president's tried to do, and sometimes he does it awkwardly because he knee-jerks and he's not articulate, but the message he's really trying to send is important. He shouldn't say it was the perfect this or that. Yeah, I know. But I think the governor's probably articulated it a little better, but he and the president agree on something. Many people who are going to get this virus are not even going to get sick beyond what's like a cold, if that. Many are going to get sort of cold-like symptoms. Others are going to get full-blown flu symptoms, and others worse. And for those of you who are older and not in good shape or have a pre-existing condition, the virus is going to be difficult. But by and large, the virus, and in fact, words are almost inadequate here because we say pandemic, oh my God, it's how people do it. We have a new strain of infection that we've never dealt with before. That's what's going on. It is not like the Black Plague. It's not like yellow fever. It's not like the measles. It's not like even the horrible flu strains that we had to deal with, the SARS, Ebola. And here's the little twist. Government has a responsibility and was really responsive to the fact that even if this sound device, okay, it's something that we use for sound effects, okay, like even if something as simple as that could hurt you, one person, there will be laws. They will take it off the market. You get letters to recall it. And so the government has to respond to that. So the government can't pretend. They really can't. Well, this is no big. They shouldn't say it's no big deal because you're going to get sick or you're going to contract the virus as part of the pandemic. So what this is like, and I'm working desperately in my head to come up with a metaphor for it. This is going to be a widespread global distribution and infusion of a virus to the global population. It's not going to be an earth-altering event from what everyone can tell. It's likely not going to kill millions of people. It's not even going to kill as many perhaps as the flu, although it may because it has a slightly higher percentage rate. But more than that, it appears it's not going to do unless it mutates in some way. But again, the government, if it was just this device and one person might get sick, we get a law and we'd activate because the government can't stand by and say, look, we knew people weren't going to get killed, but a lot of you were going to get sick, get over it. They can't say that either. So they're between a rock and a hard place because that's what we expect from them. Same thing after 9/11. My God, oh, look what we've done. We've surrendered our freedoms. We can't get on an airplane. Now, that was a pretty serious threat. 3,000 people died in one day. But very few people have died from terrorism per se. Many, many more have died from domestic terrorism and guns than that. Many more have died slipping in their tubs. Many more people will die today coughing and choking on coffee or food and drugs than will die from the coronavirus. So yes, it's going to impact all of us in some way, whether we've sprayed down everything that we could here in the studio, whether you don't get on a train, whether your children don't go to school. It's going to affect us in that way, but it is not going to be a plague by all indications. And I'm not soft-pedaling it. You know, if I thought, the president's inarticulate, but if I thought the president was just trying to make it all go away, and sure, he's got political reasons too, and the Democrats have political reasons to hope it doesn't. But politics needs to be set aside, and we need to keep a level head. Now, it doesn't mean that you should stop using your handy wipes. It doesn't mean that you should get on a crowded train if people are hacking and coughing. But the reality of it is that it's going to touch all of us in some way, even if it's by listening to this. So let's keep a level head about ourselves. And we will continue to open with the news every day so you know what schools are closed. That certainly will impact you, and it'll impact the economy. Because once again, governments around the world, they have an obligation to keep you from getting sick, even if it's just a cold. And they know it, and it's new, and it's unpredictable. So they are trying to balance on this tightrope. This is Radio Westchester. We hope Vince knows that he calls in on 7 on Tuesdays and not 7:20. But we'll probably call him to remind him, but we have to share the weather with you again. You're listening to Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am here. Stay right there. I know it's monotonous. Other radio stations do it every 8 minutes. We only do it every 15. And then when we get to the hour-long interview, we only do it. That sounds terrible. We only do it in the evenings. Well, we only do the weather every 15 minutes or between guests as we get into the guest part of the program. But it is already 56 degrees, and I have to tell you, it's warm in here. I got to open a window or lower the heat or something like that. But if I lower the window, there'll be too much ambient noise. We didn't put the air conditioning in yet. It's too early. He defied me, Vince. Well, as we get ready for him, remember, it is 6:04, and as we get into the 6 o'clock hour, the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit UHGC.com. It's 56 degrees. We'll have a little bit of rain later in the day, but we're going to get up to 65. Tomorrow, only 65, a mixture of sun and clouds, and then on into Wednesday, it gets a little cooler, about 61 or 62, and then only 56 on Thursday. But all in all, a pretty nice week. It'll chill out a little bit at night, getting down to 40 on Wednesday and Thursday. But hey, we can live with that. And as we go through the top of the hour is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit UHGC.org. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and plug-in virtual reality. And let's take a look at the lineup for today. Vince joins us now, Vince Russo. Then we'll be joined by Mike Edelman, Mike Duffy, one of our great voices of reason. Jake will be talking about Conforto, now tripping over his own 2 feet. Sean Patterson Howard, the new mayor, and she seems to be really handling things well over in Mount Vernon, even as old ghosts come out of the woodwork. What are those old ghosts? The fact that the controller, someone lit a match in that cave that is where he hangs his hat. The controller of the state of New York is finally investigating the finances of the city. And God bless Lohud and the people at the Journal News and Marco Ingriello and others. They're doing an investigative piece now why no one has been held accountable for what went on in Memorial Field. And by the way, one of the memorials they should have is for Richard Thomas for bringing those issues to life. His career, at least for now, was crushed by those intentions. And then Del Husler, he is a newspaper man from Yonkers, will join us at 8:50. And then Jack Breslin, now that they're not having classes, he'll be in, but we have 2 issues we want to talk with Jack about. It's going to be very interesting talking with a college professor about this. Because why does the Me Too movement, which rightly castigates, eviscerates, and pushes back against the tyranny that the powerful have, now using their tyranny, their power. Imagine this, to prevent the publication of a book. We'll ask him about that. We'll also ask him about the president's 3 lawsuits. The New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, suing them for libel, I guess. All righty, let's get to the telephone. Vince is on the line. Good morning, Vince Russo. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. My bad. Thanks for the prompt. I was sitting here just chilling out. And
I do a lot of those little secret things on the air that people don't know. Am I coming through out there? Welcome to TV land. I should do that right here. One day, since we stream now, I should do that whole skit. As you can see, I'm about to do a radio program. I can do this.
Bob, I just wanted to start off this morning by making a comment about George Latimer. I don't know Westchester politics intimately because I don't live up there and I obviously don't follow it closely.
And we're glad you're not here.
Okay. Well, but every time I listen to George, I am so impressed.
Yeah, Well, you know what I've always told him over the years, that he takes us to school. Now, of course, George, like anyone else in politics, Probably 40% of the people hate him. And he's gifted and he's cunning and he's wily, as you would expect an elected official to be. But this guy could explain anything and make it sound reasonable.
Yeah,
He's
and
gifted.
that's really not only can he do that, when he was talking about this whole coronavirus thing up there, his approach to the problem, and I think the way he approaches problems in general, is very measured. It's not like overreacting.
No.
He looks at the issue. He, like he said yesterday to people, don't just dismiss it out of hand because it's nothing, but don't go crazy and overreact either. It's so refreshing to see a politician who's like that, who's articulate, who's intelligent. He has such a grasp of the facts. And, even there's, certain things I don't agree with George. Certainly the gun show issue, not having the gun show in Westchester.
Oh.
But when you brought that up to him, he was able to articulate all of the whole history of how that came about, all of the laws that were passed, all of the people who were involved, all of the previous county executives, and the guy just has it down.
No, he's got a gift, and even his enemies know that. And what's interesting? A lot of George's enemies like him.
Yeah. Well, and I had the pleasure of meeting George at a
when I got that award,
a dinner that you got the award, and sitting down with him for an hour and just chit chatting. The guy is so down to earth. He doesn't take himself seriously. He was really a very impressive guy, and I have such admiration for him, and it's always fun to listen to him.
He's got a shot to be the next governor. He won't say it, and I should pick on him and ask him about that, too.
Bob, I was going to bring that up. I hope he aspires to higher office because we need people like him. And again, even if you don't agree totally with his politics, he's thoughtful, he's measured, he again has such a firm grasp of details. Yeah, I'm a big Latimer fan.
I see. Well, well, he and I have had a lot of fun over the years. He's been coming on for so many years. He's got a temper, though. I remember. One of my favorite. He was running against a guy. He was running either for his newest. He was running for the Senate, and he beat a guy who was well financed. And actually, I thought was a pretty good candidate, but it got ugly. And this guy was. He called George out on some things that George probably did with some real wily intent, like getting out of votes that were controversial and stuff, or at least that was the assertion. And he did an ad on television showing George tripping out the front door of the Senate on his way out not to vote. So the next day, the way I am, the next day I come on, I said, "Hey, Mr. Assemblyman, I gave you a 9 on that one." He was not happy.
Well, here in New Jersey, we have a different form of county government. You guys have a county executive who's really the leader of the...
He's like a governor, yeah.
Like a governor of the county. Mm-hmm. In New Jersey, and this goes back to colonial days, we have what we call the Board of Chosen Freeholders. And freeholders were the landowners who ran the county. And, back in the colonial days, only the landowners could vote.
Right.
And they had a governing body that they chose from their own ranks to run the county, and so that's the way we have it. So it's really run by committee in New Jersey as opposed to having a county executive. But they're good people. I know most of them, and we're very friendly with them, and as a result, our town gets good consideration from the freeholders. They decide, what county roads are going to get paved.
Now, what is their official, like what are, you were just about to tell us, so it shows what an idiot I am, but what are their official duties? Are they paid? Are they elected? How is a freeholder?
They're elected and paid a good salary as opposed to me. I'm elected but not paid a good salary.
Salaries are set based on the contributions of the employees. So go ahead.
One does according to one's gift.
Yes.
So they're elected, they're paid, and their duties are the same as Georgia's duties. They run the county. So anything, any county emergencies, any public works, anything
But
like
you
that.
use plural. Is the top dog a freeholder, or are there always several? Is it like a
There is no
council?
top. There is no top dog.
Oof. Okay.
No, there's none. They're all on the same level, and I believe it's 6 of them, and they, as a committee, decide.
It's kind of like going to the elders in some ancient city or town. Let's go talk to the elders.
We have elders in my church, but
You do?
yeah.
Oh, let's go back to that. What do they look like? What are their roles? What are they? And we're with Vince Russo here who has found God in his glove compartment 6 months ago.
But the freeholders do exactly what George does, except they do it as a committee as opposed to a single executive who has executive power over the county. So, but it goes back to the colonial times when and they're we're the only county in the whole country where they are called freeholders.
But what about Freehold, New Jersey? Why did they give it that name?
I have no idea.
Well, you're supposed to. You're an elected official in Jersey, and you don't understand your own state? By the way, what are you guys doing at the coronavirus? Burning it for oil over at the off the turnpike?
No, we go to the local pub and we order beer that's
Corona,
not Corona,
yeah.
not Corona, because we don't want to catch it. We're following the directions from Trenton. The governor has been. I think I don't agree with him politically, but I think he's taken a good measured approach to, trying to get people not to panic. And
one of the great ironies about New Jersey, and I'm being tongue in cheek now, but it is true, that your capital is in one of the hellholes of the country.
Well, if you
been
look,
in Trenton.
Well,
lately?
but you know what? Trenton.
Actually, it's coming back. Great ballpark.
Trenton never was a leading manufacturing center. And I think the slogan down there was, "What Trenton makes, the world takes." And
yes, it was. They still have that sign hanging up there.
Yeah, when New Jersey, actually did manufacturing, Trenton was a pretty booming town, as was Camden.
Well, Camden is the coronavirus of cities. I mean, good God!
But Bob, that's what led to the downfall of these cities.
Yeah.
Patterson, founded by Alexander Hamilton, was one of the leading manufacturing cities in the country.
Is it that we lost the manufacturing, why these cities declined? By the way,
yes.
Camden has a great aquarium, by the way, just so you know.
Well, it's the same with Buffalo and Utica and Rochester.
Utica.
I mean, all of those great cities in upper New York, they all suffered greatly when manufacturing left.
Actually, on a serious note, I was kidding about Camden because there's a lot of crime and it's very dangerous for those of us who have our origins in Central Jersey, going down south. But it really is sad how if you go to Syracuse or you go to Chenango County and Binghamton and through that whole western belt in New York and then the cities you're talking about in New Jersey, the housing stock is falling apart.
Yeah. It's because there's no jobs. There's nothing to support it. People have moved. People who live there, their kids grow up, and what do? As soon as they get education or whatever, they
get out of
split
Dodge.
because there's nothing to do. There's no work. Same thing as you go west into Pennsylvania, Akron and Toledo and places like that. It's a shame how manufacturing has left this country, and leaving it behind. The wake of it is lack of jobs and deteriorating cities that once housed these industries. You look at like the steel industry. Think of all the great names in steel that used to be here. U.S. Steel,
Mr. Chrome.
There were Likes Youngstown. I mean, there was all of these great steel mills, and now I think I could be wrong, but there's like one steel mill.
Well, the same thing down south. You had all the textile businesses. Although car companies have and there's something to be said for the way the South handles itself, because they get, when a car company wants to come here and build cars, they go down south.
Well, but the reason for that is
no taxes.
I think it was during Reagan. I'm not sure. Congress passed a law that said X percentage of cars had to be manufactured in the U.S. It was when the Japanese were dumping all those cars in the U.S. to gain the market share.
Yeah.
And, they were selling them for less than what they were making them for. And the U.S. said, that's
and they were
not
good
happening.
cars, too, by the way.
And so what they did was they forced them to start making cars here. If that wasn't the case, that would be shriveled up, too.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
So it's a shame, and it goes back to what I said the other day, that if we were in a situation where we had to fight World War II again, we could never do it. We don't have the infrastructure to do it.
Well,
what are we going to do? Tell the Japanese send us?
Yeah, but you know what? We've got nukes.
Bombers?
We can just threaten somebody. We'll nuke you if you don't give us steel. Vincent, thank you very much. I know you're not going to be with us tomorrow, but I'll be in touch with you off air. I know he's got some family member coming in from out of town. It'll be wonderful for you. Enjoy that, and I'll be in touch.
All right, Bob. Sorry for the delay getting on.
No, that's
morning.
all right. I knew you would do it. That's okay, Norton. All righty, we're getting ready for our next guest. I handle everything myself. I'm a cook, chief cook, bottle washer, and all of that. And just a reminder, it is 6:19. In 1 minute, we will talk with someone some of you love to hate, some of you love to love him, others you aren't. No one's very indifferent about Mike Edelman, political analyst, longtime Republican here in Westchester County, a lawyer by trade, ran for Congress, very learned guy. And we're going to go straight to him now. Please welcome Mike Edelman. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
Hot.
Good.
It's 56 degrees, but I think I left the heat on overnight, so I'm sweating in the studio because I don't know what to set it for anymore. Anyway, it's nice up here. How's it down there in Florida?
It's 80 every day.
Fine. All right, let's move on then. Okay, let's go to Super Tuesday. What a surprise. We were here all night. I have something to share with you about young people, but first, what's your take? What happens tonight? There are 5 other states in play, and based on what we looked at yesterday, Mr. Biden is he's the favorite in almost every race.
That's right, he is. Michigan is the most important race because Bernie won Michigan against Hillary Clinton last time when they said he couldn't. This time there are 5 polls dated yesterday and today. All have Joe Biden over 50%. One has him over 60%. So it's going to be Joe Biden's night.
Yeah, probably is. Now, we're headed to a place that is familiar territory. Is Bernie going to let go of his? Is he going to let go of this before the convention? Do you think he's going to take it all the way to July?
No, I think he's going to. I think he understands the importance of unifying the Democrats and beating Donald Trump. I don't think he's going to go to the convention if he understands that as Bernie insisted, that the candidate who has a plurality gets the nomination. If that's Joe Biden, it's going to be very hard for Bernie to change his mind.
Now, having said that, and I'm being very well, I'm going to share a joke with you. You got to give your critics and my critics when it comes to this stuff their due. One of them sent me something that was so funny I couldn't start laughing. Can I share it with you?
Sure.
Because it's the essence of what I think the Democrats have to conquer. Hi, I'm Joe Biden, and I forgot this message. It's a great one. You got to admit. Come on. But what are they going to do? What is the Democratic Party going to do to get him sharp for these debates?
Well, let me make a point about Joe Biden's sharpness. I've observed him over the last year in small events that most people don't watch. See, most of your critics on that call in are watching Fox News make fun of Joe Biden, or they're reading the New York Post make fun of Joe Biden. Joe Biden is able to defend himself, as you'll find out in the debate on Sunday with Bernie Sanders, all too well. He's a good speaker. It's just that he's not a great debater when there's 7 people on the debate stage, and occasionally he flubs something. But it's not going to be about Joe Biden. Donald Trump can't put his sentence together.
Well, that is true. That is very true.
If you watch, Bill Maher has a snippet of Trump snarling and grunting, and that's what they should run, because Donald Trump, Kavesi, remember that one? He can't spell, he can't read. Preet Bharara nailed it yesterday in his Twitter feed. He went through all the things that Donald Trump is incapable of doing. and you're going to find that the comparison will be somebody who's calm, thoughtful, and understands policy. That's Joe Biden against somebody who has no clue about coronavirus, no clue about government, no clue about policy, doesn't read his briefing books, and is unserious president. And that's going to be the matchup. It's not going to be Fox News making fun of Joe Biden.
Okay, now some of your fans, and I've been compelled to ask you this. You had predicted that the president would bow out.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's going to go to the election, isn't he?
It's possible. I still think there's a 50-50 chance he won't run. I think it all depends on what his pollster tells him going into the election. This guy does not want to go out a loser. You need to understand his psyche. He has a huge golf course, hotel business that will take an enormous hit if the guy is rejected in an election. And he's going to take that into consideration before he takes the political into consideration. I'm sure he loves being president. He loves everybody calling him sir. He loves, getting his butt kissed by everybody. But the bottom line for him is money. And if Brad Parscale tells him right before the convention that Joe Biden is going to clean his clock all over the country, he'll find a way not to run. Medical way, a business way. He'll blame the media. So I still think there's a 50-50 chance he's not the candidate.
Well, you follow this stuff. And again, my guest is political analyst Mike Edelman, a longtime Republican here in Westchester County. What are the keys now to the election, and what about the battleground states?
Well, the battleground states are the only thing that counts. New York doesn't count. My state does. Florida counts. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. This year, Arizona. And the issue is going to be, do the voters that voted for Obama and then voted for Trump go back to Joe Biden? Because that was the difference. It was only 80,000 votes across 3 states. And even Donald Trump admitted, he said, if the election were held on any other day but this day, I would have lost. So right now, those battleground polls have Joe Biden ahead double digits. And I think that's only going to get worse for Donald Trump, which is why I say the guy's not going to go into the election if he knows he's going to lose.
Now, let's take a look at the effect of the coronavirus. Now, again, when we refer to the president as being inarticulate, sometimes he hurts himself when he's actually trying to do the right thing. He's struggling with trying to get people not to panic, but also not have the stock market crash, et cetera, et cetera. What, in your view, will have been the effect of his management of this virus and even the virus at large in the country? What is your take on all this?
He's doing a great disservice to the nation, just like Jeanine Pirro is doing a great disservice to the nation.
Well, what's she saying now? What's the wackadoodle doing? What's the wackadoodle doing?
Yeah, she gets on Saturday nights, everybody calm down, everybody do this. And meanwhile, Mark Meadows, Matt Getz, and the Doug Collins, the 3 outspoken Tea Party guys, have self-quarantined, along with Ted Cruz.
Well, did you hear Tucker Carlson this morning, which is very hard for me to believe, but he got off the Fox bandwagon this morning?
Look, this is a serious disease. It is even more serious if you're older and sicker. And for Donald Trump to try and play it down, and for Fox News to dismiss it as a Democratic hoax, is absolute nonsense. And those people who believe that this is somehow not real, just go look at Italy. They just closed the entire country down.
Although
60 million people.
Although isn't it also true, as the governor of New York has said, that yes, a lot of people are going to get it. Yes, there's a vulnerable population, but isn't there a sweet spot in there, Michael, where yes, we're all going to be touched by it, but it's not going to be a black plague or yellow
nobody
fever?
Says it's going to be a black plague, but it's a serious disease that shouldn't be poo-pooed by the president of the United States. He shouldn't say it doesn't count when his CDC says it does. He shouldn't shut the scientists down, which he attempted to do. Let Anthony Fauci tell the American public what precautions they need to take to keep them and their loved ones safe. That's all, and he didn't do it. He didn't do it because he didn't want the stock market to hurt his political fortunes, and that should not be how the President of the United States operates.
All right, let me take you to a couple of local races that are going on. The race, we've got, of course, the race for Nita Lowey's seat.
Yeah.
And the most interesting race, to my mind, is the DA's race.
Yes.
Because of some of the news stories that have come out. But also, I'm holding the Democratic Party by the throat on this one here in New York. We had, you know the story of Richard Thomas and Mount Vernon, I'm sure.
Yes.
And he had to resign because he pled out on a campaign finance issue.
Yeah.
He fought with the comptroller who wouldn't pay bills, et cetera, et cetera. And yet he ran on having transparency in the finances. He begged the comptroller, who I've lost so much respect for. I used to be a big supporter of the comptroller of the state of New York. Begged him to come in. Came in for a day, said, oops, and I have the records, Michael. Mm-hmm. So, oops, we got to go. By the way, the office that you were going to put there for us, don't clean it out. We're not coming back. The mayor also got embroiled in this, and he made a lot of mistakes, this young man, but still embroiled in the Memorial Field fiasco. He ran on that too. So now, after he's out of office, his career, at least for now, destroyed. Hounded out by the comptroller, hounded out by the people who were trying to hold at bay what happened at Memorial Field, including perhaps the larger Democratic Party in some way, at least by my take. Now, all of a sudden, the comptroller's coming in because the new mayor can't get anything done with the comptroller either. And now the LOHA, to their credit, has come out with a huge piece about why no one was held accountable. What the hell? Has Mount Vernon always been like this? And how much does a party affect what goes on in a local city? Because something's rotten in, not Denmark, something's rotten in Albany. And perhaps in White Plains.
All of Albany is Democratic, but you would expect the comptroller to come in and do a fair investigation. In addition to what you pointed out, wasn't money used to pay a private law firm taken from an escrow account in the city by a guy by the name of Port Carey?
Oh, I know that whole story. Yeah, what he did, and I'm not saying he's not, but you know what's interesting? His interpretation was that the mayor should, his law bills, and that's all fair game, should be paid by the city. But because the comptroller wasn't paying bills, they had been using, and long before that, they had been using the water department, which is one of the funds that the administration could control, since the comptroller was in effect on strike. So what Picaro got convicted of is making a false representation, as I understand it, with the paperwork. Not necessarily for going to the water department, but for making a false representation. But what's interesting is the mayor who benefited from it, he was not prosecuted. And so, yeah, he broke rules. But what I'm saying is that rule got broken, and I'm just very disappointed in the system. After 4 years, do you know they wouldn't even pay this mayor to get pencils and pads and employees? Look, again, he's got a lot. I'm not covering up for the mistakes he made. But if you followed it day in, day out like I did, now all of a sudden he's gone and now everything is okay to talk about and everything is okay to look into. One of the most disappointing moments of my news career was when a guy that I had supported for 8 years, I really was a big fan of the comptroller, when he did nothing. One
party rule is deleterious to the health of any democracy, whether it's federal or state or local. You got to have a watchdog, and right now I don't think New York has a watchdog.
No, it does not.
Everybody's a Democrat.
No, but if you are a local mayor and you are begging the control, and that's why. Now get this: you've been an attorney. The very mayor who got thrown out, you would think he'd be saying, "Oh God, I hope the comptroller doesn't come in now," right? Find out all the terrible things I did. He's still begging the comptroller to come in. What does that tell you?
Well, that tells you that there's stuff that you don't know about that the mayor does.
Yes. Well, I've seen some of the paperwork. I have a ledger in my possession with a $95 million debit on it that some people in that city want to write off. And he said, no, you shouldn't. Let's see how it got there.
Mount Vernon, going back to Augie Petrillo, is an interesting place. I was corporation counsel of Yonkers. That was an interesting place too.
Well, Yonkers was taken over by the state. If any city deserved to be taken over by the state, it is Mount Vernon. And again, you don't know who to believe. Even the people who cover it closely, it's so tribal. But the fact of the matter is that something just wasn't right about that. Why would the guy who was sent away as being corrupt is still begging for all this oversight? Makes no sense. Because
Bob, there could be two reasons. One could be he isn't guilty of a lot of things, and he really wants the controller to come in. The other could be that he knows the controller's not coming in, so why not ask?
Oh no, the controller is finally coming in.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, in fact, do you know what the controller said to the current mayor when confronted, and we have it on film? I'm going to get you out of here the same way I got out the other mayor.
Nice.
Isn't that nice? And I just feel that's why I did this, Michael. And I'm sorry to go on this soapbox. I did this for a living. I could have made a lot more money staying on Wall Street. It's stories like this. And again, a lot of people think, are you an apologist for Thomas? Absolutely not. He made some dumb, boneheaded decisions. Bad optics. He didn't know how to make friends. He thought he could do it himself. He thought he was smarter than everybody else. He was arrogant. He should have. And you know what? You don't go buy a $4,000 purse or whatever the hell it was when you're running for office and not record it, even if it was money you were supposed to get. So I'm not forgiving any of that. But what I'm saying is he gave them every excuse and they took it. But something is rotten in Mount Vernon, and something's rotten in White Plains, and something's rotten in Albany when it comes to Mount Vernon.
Very possible.
And that's my opinion. It's just an opinion. But boy, I've been doing this for too long. When you learn how to smell a rat after a while.
I was just going to say, you smell a rat.
Yeah.
You said it first.
Well, thank you so much, my friend, and thanks for letting me do that. Now I can take my medication. Mike Edelman, we'll see if his predictions come true. Take care. Go play golf. Have some fun. And we go next to Mike Duffy. But first, we need to take care of some other business. One of them includes the weather. Oh, good. I feel better already. Got that off my chest. My goodness. Yeah, they let this guy twist in the wind. Politics is a nasty business. I didn't think it was so nasty, but it shows how naive I was. All righty. 56 degrees, and it's muggy in here. It's 56 degrees, broken clouds right now. Actually, it looks almost ominous, but cloudy with rain. But later in the day, the temperature will average out about 65 tonight, partly cloudy, the temperature 42. The wind out of the southwest, 10 to 15 miles an hour. Wednesday, sunshine, followed by increasing clouds, 56. Again, a warmer week. Thursday, partly sunny, the high in the mid-40s, but it'll get down to 39 at night. Friday, mostly cloudy, scattered showers, high 59 degrees. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by Night Hebrew of New Rochelle. Voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And the bottom of the hour, as we get into it, is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And Jake's in the house. We'll be talking with him 8 o'clock. Now, Conforto's hurt. More people are getting hurt than ever before, and thank goodness you opened the door. It's roasting in here. So, but then again, I sweat for a living. I work hard. I think I do. All righty. One of our favorite guests. I hate to give him a compliment because he always catches me in things I don't know. He's a very fine defense attorney, but he's also been of service to the public as a detective, as a police officer, as the head of investigations for the DA here. I guess he worked for Janine Pirro, the woman now termed Wackadoodle, who's on Saturday nights. Please welcome, without further ado, Mike Duffy. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Bob. Good morning.
It's great to have you back. Do you mind if I grind an axe?
Go.
All right. And 15 kids see a girl getting beat up, and they weren't even mad at her. They didn't even know her. They all.
Are you talking about that incident in Brooklyn?
There's a second one now.
Oh, okay.
There's a copycat one came out today, except this one was a little older, had more money in her wallet. So a bunch of kids attacked her, beat her up, stomped her, took her sneakers too. Now, I just said it. They were from two neighborhoods in Brooklyn.
Uh-huh.
I will have people on this show who will tell me, well, they only cover stories from those bad neighborhoods, and it's racist if you point those stories out because it happens in other neighborhoods too. No, it doesn't. How do I do an honest show and say what the hell is wrong in the cultures of these areas that anyone would even do that?
Right. Well, we're hoping that's aberrant behavior to begin with, Bob, right? So, I mean,
well, okay,
I
but
would
what
hope,
about, let me change
you don't
it.
want it at all, but you would hope it'd be restricted to a few neighborhoods.
Well, yes, but there's the preponderance of it in these neighborhoods. It's the same thing. I grew up in a neighborhood, and we were all mixed race, mixed ethnicity, mixed religions, and it was a mentality. It was the culture of the neighborhood. We had gang fights and all of that. Same thing. But what I'm saying is, what do we do with these kids when they're 14 to 17? And they didn't look poor. They were reasonably well dressed.
Well, the one kid, I don't know about the second incident. I didn't hear about that. But the other one, the mother spotted them on the video and dragged them down to the precinct. That's how they ended up catching that
Good
first
for her.
group of kids.
Where's Dad?
Yeah. But at least Mom said, what's wrong with you? You're not doing that. They featured her in the paper the other day. I think it was the Post, maybe in Sunday's Post. And Mom was doing, I guess, the job she could with whatever hours she has with the kid.
God bless her.
And working. But you're right. Where's the dad? It's breakdown of the family. It's society in general, Bob. You know that.
Well, and again, it happens. I lived in a horrible, well, it was horrible in certain words. I lived in an area, Bensonhurst, where everybody was a mafia wannabe, and they were the same way.
Uh-huh.
Every neighborhood has their own cultures. But, wow, what I'm trying to get at is, you must see this in police work, and you have to forget about it, but every neighborhood has a different culture. The Russian neighborhood in Brighton Beach, the Italian neighborhood in Bensonhurst, mixed-use areas all over. So, and there must be dynamics, but what do we do about this?
Yeah, I'm chuckling, Bob, because you know what? You and I, we've been talking a long time. We've never discussed that. Like even in a city like White Plains, which is a small city, it's not crime-ridden. Each neighborhood has its own particular flavor. You have the southern part of town, which is large mansions, and then more bigger houses, and not all mansions, but some out there. And then you have the inner city, Ferris Avenue, Lexington Avenue, completely different culture. Same cop shifted from, maybe one night you're down on Lexington Avenue in the middle of the projects, and the next night you're out with the mansions. So it is different, and that's what's good about a small police job like that. You get acclimated to the different areas. You're not stuck in one area. So you really, if you view it right as the cop, it really should increase your knowledge and knowledge of society in general.
Well, actually it does. But see, what I'm getting at is there's an unwillingness for people to want to engage the problems in their own communities. There is a tendency to get defensive and to make and to blame everything from poverty to changes in the weather rather than the culture. And I know that it's a very dangerous street to go down, but we have to go down it, or we're never going to fix these problems.
Well, look, police, if we're talking about police in general, police are not social workers.
No, so, I know that. I'm not, but
that's where I was going, because that's my, my expertise, if any expertise. But you address the problems where they confront you. A bad neighborhood is going to have more problems than a good neighborhood. I don't want to be simplistic, but that's where you have to put your manpower.
Resources. Now, being a guy that used to teach management, there are many different ways and management concepts that apply here. One is management by exception, which is what police work is. And then there's social work, which is management by objective. And, it's not the job of the cops. I understand that. But somehow, society at large has to do a better job.
Well, it is the job of the cops to put a stop to behavior.
But that's by exception. I break the law, you should arrest me.
But you do that, Bob, by doing things such as community policing and being proactive before problems happen. That usually that's been around since like the 70s. It started over in Great Britain, the UK, community policing, where it was actually community policing, where in the United States it's somewhat just a name so they can get grant money and put it on the side of the car, community policing, so now they have an extra car. community policing is traveling to the area, getting out, getting to know the people,
good.
walking around amongst the people. That's true community policing. So
it is, and it also lessens the fear that some people have of the police, and everybody gets to know everybody else. There's less bias, less racism. Let me ask you another question regarding policing, and then I want to go into some subtleties of the law, if you don't mind. Where was I going with this? My brain is shot today. I get so upset when I see people beating up somebody that I lose my temper.
I know you do, because you raise that issue quite often.
I mean, this is a young woman not bothering anybody, and 15 people are going to go and stomp on her. We can't tolerate that as a society. Oh, I remembered this. Now, this is a toughie, and you may have to point the finger at your own country to solve this. If we, in the United States, took guns away from police officers the way they do in the UK, what would happen?
I don't think it would work. In fact,
Why
I don't
not?
think it's working now in the UK.
Why not?
That's why I give a little chuckle. I mean, there's some serious incidents in London with knives and shooting just in the past. And look at Toronto. Toronto is, an offshoot of Canada like we are. Toronto has a horrible gun and homicide problem right now, and gang problem. People wouldn't think that, but
they do.
Right now.
Yeah, up in Scarborough and different parts in suburbs of Toronto, for sure.
But no, I don't. I don't think you could take away the guns of the police officers. In fact, I've seen some left-wing knuckleheads actually say that. Time to take away the guns of the police officers.
Well, that's what we see. What I'm getting at is you couldn't dare take away guns in the United States because of our culture. See, the point I was getting at, and if anybody thought it was just culture or Italians or African Americans or anything else, the point I'm getting at is America has a violent streak. There's no, we do, and it was our founding comes from it. The Clint Eastwood movies, we have a violent streak. I can't imagine our cops without guns. Just can't.
No, and you know what? Plus, we also have the Second Amendment, so that's for the citizen at large, right? That's the Second Amendment. It's really not for police officers. Police officers are written into the law anyway. I mean, you don't have to have a pistol permit if you're a police officer. Once you're appointed as a police officer, you get, by virtue of your job, the right to, have that weapon. Now, as soon as you retire, if you don't get your own permit, that right is gone, and you have to surrender that. So there's possession of firearms just by affirmation of your job, but also the bigger picture is the Second Amendment, whereby citizens in general can possess these firearms.
Okay, I got another one for you. And this one comes straight from the heart. The other night...
That's a question from somebody else.
No, my own heart.
That's my point.
Oh, yes. Oh. I was driving home in the middle of the night. It was really late. And a police car had pulled someone over. And the car that got pulled over... And I'm always... I've not met anyone with tinted windows I felt I could trust, by the way. But anyway... I'm sure there must be some. 4 tinted windows, middle of the night, one cop on a semi-deserted road. Where do you get the courage to pull over a car at 4 o'clock in the morning with all tinted windows for a signal problem or speeding? Where do you get the courage to do that and have that window come down?
Bob, I probably did it hundreds of times, and I'm not exaggerating, but I don't know. I never viewed myself as a courageous person. I didn't think of it as courage. I thought of it as, why is this car doing this, or why is this car, I'm going to pull the car over. Now, what you do, because you get yourself all tied up in knots, if you reacted like that with every single traffic stop you do. But it is the situation you present. 4 o'clock in the morning, tinted window, you're going to be careful. If backup's around, you're going to say, I'm pulling over this car, request a backup unit. Sometimes you will. You have to assess the situation and use your training. And believe it or not, there's a lot that goes into not just pulling the car over.
I'm sure, but that's what I'm asking you. But that's what I'm asking you. What's that like?
You have to position the car properly, so if somebody does get out shooting, you have the car between you and the other person. I'll see guys they had the same training. They'll walk out of the car walk over and stick their head in the window. That's a good way to have no head. I never did that. A lot of the officers I worked with never did that. You assess the situation. You park your car properly. You approach by a way where they can't see you in their mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the tinted windows, and that's why they're illegal, the dark tinted windows obviously present a safety problem for officers out there. But you know what? You got to do it. You got to
Mm-hmm.
pull the car over. You got to pull the car over. And hopefully backup will get there soon. The guys I feel for, the troopers in upstate New York with the deer and the buffalo roaming the road.
Oh, yeah.
They're alone out there. And literally their nearest help is sometimes a half hour away.
Have you ever hit a deer, by the way?
I have hit a deer with my own car, yes.
Yeah, me too.
Right near the
Wow.
Westchester County Airport. It demolished the front of my 1979 Volkswagen. Yeah.
Oh, Volkswagen. Let's see, you were doing well as a police officer back then. I pulled to the right and it sheared off. I didn't realize how violent that was. It sheared off my front fender and my back fender as I tried to avoid it. It's quite remarkable.
Well, it came onto my hood, Bob, a little farther. It would have come right through the car, right into me.
Good
But
for you.
it's funny. West Harrison firefighters were driving by, and they were on their way to. It wasn't a fire or anything. They were just driving by off duty, and they stopped to help me. And then they said, "Can we go get the deer?" Because the deer ran off into the woods. I said, "I don't care what you do with
No.
it."
Throw them on the hood and eat them later.
Yeah.
6:49, we're talking with a defense attorney, but also knows his way around the law as a police officer and investigator, Mike Duffy. Every once in a while, I'll do a story, and then later on, the story evolves in a way where I feel vindicated about an opinion I have. But what I found out, that being vindicated a little bit, it actually enrages you sometimes more because there's blood in the trail. You may have read in Mount Vernon where finally, after the former mayor begged and pleaded and wrote memos and went to judges and said, please help us, please do something about this controller, please, 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 please. And then he said, we got to do something about what's going on in Memorial Field. Who dumped that dirt? Why is all this illegal stuff going? You messed up a lot of other reasons, a lot of mistakes that he made. But then, and that part, they say, you're just corrupt. That's what you are. Get out of here. Go, leave. You screwed up, and he did. Your campaign finances go. So now the new mayor comes in, and we're going to talk with her in about 30 minutes' time. The new mayor comes in and deals with the same controller and goes, oh, my God, the guy wasn't wrong. And the controller actually says to her, and it exists on videotape, I'm going to get you the way I got the last mayor. So finally the controller comes in, the controller of the state of New York, the Wuss Bunny, who was there for a day. And I can say that. He was there for a day. I saw the paperwork. There for a day. And then he has one of his minions call the mayor and said, guess what? We can't stay. We got to go. There's an emergency upstate. By the way, that office you were cleaning out for us, don't bother.
So that was it. They were just pulling out.
Yeah. So then we get last week, and kudos to LoHUD, finally did a story, a big comprehensive story. Mark Lingriello, praise you. How come no one ever went to jail? How come no arrests? And now, and the reason I mentioned it in politics, Mimi Rocha has now confronted the DA about that as well. But again, he's the new DA. I thought that was a sort of a spurious charge. But
I did see that. Well, Bob, that was investigated, and also the FBI investigated that.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Find anything. So I think Mimi Rocha is out of bounds with that, and with quite a few other things. I was in detention last week, so I wasn't able to speak with you. But I was going to comment.
You were in detention? I don't even want to know.
Jug with you because I was late or something. I don't know. You put me in Jug. So
that's what we called it at Bishop Ford too, Jug.
Justice under God. Jug.
All right, go ahead. Is that why that it is?
Yeah.
I did not know that. He can even give us religious law, folks. See, you cops just want to incarcerate everybody. Go ahead. Go ahead, my friend. Thank you.
Well, anyway, I was going to comment on Ms. Rocha's appearance on your show, if we can get to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
that's why I bring it up. It also because the two issues became intertwined.
It ties in. I know the DA's office did investigate that, and look, they also investigated at Stepanak High School, where an individual tied to organized crime came in and dumped a lot of fill up there, and DEP shut it down, and action was taken. The city of White Plains, which may be the difference, and they had to dig all that dirt out for the athletic field and mitigate the brownfield damage that was done with this dirt. But it was acted on and it was remediated right away, which obviously didn't happen at Memorial Field.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Ms. Roca can pin that.
No, I thought it was unfair, but it did come up in the race. Yes.
Well, yeah, the race seems to be getting pretty dirty, quite frankly.
Yes.
Which you never really see in a district attorney race. You're supposed to act like lawyers, too. In the judicial race I ran a year ago, you can only act a certain way. You are not allowed to cast aspersions at other judges or people running as judges when you are running for that position. Mm-hmm. And the DA's office, that position, the district attorney, is a semi-judicial position. So I think the same rules should apply to that. But I digress. I don't think there was anything that could have been done back then. I think her shot at the DA's office is unfair. And
but by the way, so did I, just for the record. But the two stories intertwined.
For a long time, I listened to the whole show. It was all Orange Man bad, except for, I think there was one local issue she brought up. I didn't hear her discuss gangs.
Absolutely true. I did ask her. Remember
any local issue?
Do you remember? I asked her about a few local issues,
you
and the response was moderate.
And the prosecutorial misconduct
yes.
we asked her about in the Stevens case, where the feds were running amok in that case, and subsequent to that case, well, actually, it was before and after the Enron case, where they almost bankrupted Merrill Lynch
mm-hmm.
in that case.
Yes.
I don't know if people know that.
Enron, I worked there.
Enron
I
had a lot
that.
of bad stuff going on, but Merrill Lynch came in as an innocent party, and the federal prosecutors, with no culpability on the part of Merrill Lynch, threatened basically to ruin their company and shut them down like they did Arthur Andersen, the accounting company. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, look, people are people, prosecutors are prosecutors. You have some bad ones in every situation, mm-hmm. but that one seemed, that case with Stevens and that case with the Enron prosecution, there was a lot of bad stuff going on.
Yeah, she did back off a little bit. She didn't seem to be as familiar with the Stevens case.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Bob, but you reminded me of something that she said.
Go ahead.
Well, that was in D.C. or whatever I was aware of. No,
yeah, she backed off that.
Memos went out to all DOJ offices. All AUSAs got memos as far as this is what we have to do with Brady, which is the discovery rules. Mm-hmm. It's a case law, Supreme Court case, the Brady case, and she would have received training in that. I mean, so anyway, but I think the issues for a local DA, county DA, are local. Yep. I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I got the sense. I mean, clearly a very bright woman, but you're right. Yes. She was running versus Donald Trump, not versus Mr. Scarpino, who, by the way, is a very elegant and has a great deal of dignity, Mr. Scarpino. And I don't think he's risen out of that either. I don't think...
One ad, interesting and ironically, I guess, there's one ad from the Scarpino camp that shows a mean-faced Mimi Roca, and behind her it shows Trump and Bush. Now I'm like, where did they get this from?
Well, actually, you know what? And this is just me being a political wonk. If I were running Scarpino's campaign, I would put her with a picture of Jeanine Pirro behind her.
Oh.
And I would say, do you really want another TV commentator?
Well, you know my feeling on that. I mean, I worked for Jeanine. She did a great job.
No. I know that. But I'm talking about zeitgeist now. I'm not talking about the mother's truth here. I'm talking about politics, because my word for politics is the truth doesn't matter. It's whatever works. And you see, because even if one is a full-throated supporter of Jeanine Pirro on one political thing, you can make the analogy that she's a full-throated supporter of the other side, you see. So that's a knife that can cut both ways. 6:57. And I should share this with the listeners.
7.
What happened?
You gotta fix your clock.
Oh, yeah, I said 6, didn't I? Yeah, I didn't fix the clock. Thank you very much. I got cops everywhere here. We're the producer in the studio. It's 7 o'clock. It is almost 7 or 8 o'clock.
You got to turn your clock ahead, Bob.
No, I just, it's a button. I didn't press it. Oh, are you going to indict me too? You too?
News 12, actually, I woke up Saturday morning and News 12 had about a 5-minute thing, how to make sure you turn your clocks back and how to turn your clocks back. I mean, we've really become like an idiot nation.
No, I just got to press the button. I forgot you and Jake, okay? Both of you.
No, I don't mean you being the idiot with that, but I don't
know. No, but I am the idiot, okay? See, I had
a 5-minute segment on that.
You see what a good cop he was, folks? He's got me to admit it. He didn't even press me. I did it, all right, cop, I did it. And she deserved it, okay? Does that make you feel better? As he marches me off to his cell. No, what I started to say was, Michael, as we come up on 8 o'clock, Jake, and you better get in your seat because you're up next, is I never, rarely, maybe once did I say, we're going to talk about this. I have never prepared for our interviews in a sense that I tell you what we're going to talk about. And I really appreciate you always come on cold. Well, that's something I believe in, and I think it makes a big difference. And
I think it adds to all your not clientele, your interviewees that come on. It's a great way to do things, Bob. Actually.
Well, you know why? Because it's fresh.
You can catch somebody if they're BSing you. It becomes quite obvious.
Well, and every once in a while, I'll be asked by a newspaper, you went down that line. Why'd you go down that line? And I'm telling them, I'm really getting ready for an interview a month from now. I'm trying to get them on the record. So, Hey, listen, thank you very much. Mike Duffy, as I say, you're always able to deal with the balls that I pitch. And whether it's a curve.
I thought you were going to say something else, Bob, so I'm leaving that out.
No, it's something,
I mean, that just didn't sound right, Bob.
I'm glad that you had jug, and I did not know what jug meant, okay? I really didn't, and all the times. Do you know what they made me do? You went to Catholic school, right?
Sure, yeah.
I had this brother Damaris, and I could still quote him to this day when I didn't hand in my earth science. Mr. Marrone, you'll be cleaning the rat cages this afternoon. And lo and behold, that was my jug, cleaning out the rat cages.
Right. Now you know, Bob, it's justice under God. So.
Justice under God. Thank you very much. Mike Duffy, how can people get a hold of you?
Just look me up and, Google me.
Yeah.
Criminal defense attorney in White Plains, and... my pretty little face should pop up.
Well, let's not get exaggerated now. The man was once a model for Halloween decorations. Thank you very much, Michael. Take care. Mike Duffy, everyone. My goodness. Guess who's up next? The one thing that we can say about Jake is that he knows what time it is. And he corrected me. Well, folks, get the children out of the house. Put them in the closet. Don't let them see what they're about to see. Ta-da. Good morning, Jake. Jake Schaefer, our handicapper, had a very bad night at hockey. He's going to remind me of that. We're going to talk about a few other things. Jake is our sports guy. He also is our betting guru, knows how to wager. He is many things here to the radio station. This segment is brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Ortido, Fuente, Padrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. Please welcome, without further ado, Jake Schaefer. Good morning, Jake.
7:01.
It's 8:01.
Cloudy skies.
I hate you. See, that's the comedian in him. He see, they pounce. He saw a weakness. He saw.
No, I was reading the paper and you said 6:57, and I was like, geez, I should still be in bed.
You should. No, yeah, I actually was doing well all day. I have to just press a button, and I didn't. All righty.
You didn't do well last night.
I had a rough night.
Yes.
And I'm shocked that Buffalo won. It's killing me.
And our precious little intern's having his wisdom teeth out, but he's making a real play on you.
But what's the score right now?
You were 1-4 last night. He was 4-1.
He went with all the favorites, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So what are we now?
You are 33-30. You're getting
almost becoming
close
a 500
to the danger zone.
And what's he?
33-22. Right in the danger
zone.
Wait.
I have 10 more games than him?
Well, you've picked a lot more than he has.
Well, okay. Let me do some more picks here. We're gonna have to do it by percentages then. All right,
I know
let's go.
we're gonna need a calculator.
Well, don't worry about it now. But give me more. I got calculators. But okay, let's go. Hold on. Bob's picks of the week.
When does the season end?
Oh, not till April. The playoffs start at the end of April or thereabouts.
I'm sure you'll keep right on picking.
Hey, I was doing real well for a while.
All right, you got the Stars at home against your Rangers. You said you'd always take
Rangers
the Rangers.
are making a comeback.
They're big underdogs. You're taking the Rangers?
Yeah, they got to make a comeback tonight or they're doomed, so I'm rooting for them. Okay, now I'm just going to be hardball. No heart. No. Go ahead.
Canucks at home against the Islanders.
Isles. They got to come back as well.
Penguins at home against the Devils.
Birds. A lot of people don't know penguins are birds, you know. Just saying.
Predators on the road favored against the Canadiens.
Preds.
Lightning on the road favored, favorite against the Maple Leafs.
Oh, you got to go with the Lightning. Damn it.
Flyers at home, slight favorites against the Bruins.
Wow. Flyers don't lose at home. They're hot. They're hotter than Pistols. I could lose that game, though.
Hurricanes on the road, big favorites against the Red Wings.
Yeah, you got to go with the Canes.
And the Ducks at home favored against the Senators.
Jeez. This is like going to the electric chair and being asked if you want AC or DC current. I'm going to go with the Sens.
All right, three underdogs.
Woof! All righty, those are Bob's picks of the week. Now we need to get to some other stuff. You tended to be, well, not tended, you were right about something in your commentary yesterday about basketball. I did a little bit of research reading up on the Atkinson deal. And you're right, it was guys that didn't even play. Duncan. He says he didn't like the culture, so they fired him. It's a players' league. Why even have a coach? Why not just let these guys come and play like a schoolyard ball, which is what they do anyway?
I think it has to do with social media. I really do. They're worldwide celebrities.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah, but you're getting a coach fired? My God. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Michael Conforto. What do you know about this? People were crying last night on the radio. Oh God, he got hurt going after a fly ball.
Yeah, he hurt his ribs. Are they even going to have a baseball season?
Oh well, that's the next thing. We talked about this today. Major League Baseball, the NHL, Major League Soccer, and the NBA. They all are going to have games anyway to empty arenas and stadiums. Now, I don't know if you remember this.
I had tickets for a concert at MSG canceled. I was going to go see Seton Hall play on Thursday.
They canceled the game?
They didn't cancel it, but I don't know what they're going to do.
I bet you they still have it.
It's crazy. I just don't touch people. I don't touch things. I think that's the trick, right?
Well, you're true, and don't come near me. Now, obviously, you go home and you hug and kiss your wife and say hello. Do you keep her in another room?
Nope, quarantined.
She's quarantined?
Yeah.
This brings out all kinds of evil impulses in me, but I'm going to let it go as we pass to 8:08. Okay. Would you watch a game on television with nobody in the crowd?
Of course.
Me too. Do you think eventually that's the future of sports? Probably not in our lifetime, but maybe 50 years from now, 60 years from now.
It's so ridiculous to even think about, but
it's possible. I mean, look at baseball. I'm sure you've sat in the upper deck of a Met a Yankee game.
I always sneak down.
Okay, but you may as well be in the next state. I don't understand the allure of it. I really don't. But then again, when I'm a hypocrite, I'll sit high up for a hockey game, although I'd rather watch it on TV at this point because the atmosphere is fun. But baseball is ridiculous. I mean, you're so high up, it's absurd. At least football, the ball's big. And okay, where are we headed with the XFL? They're not running out of money yet? They're still playing? No word?
They're doing good. I think I still am excited about watching a game.
Okay.
I think the ratings are still doing very well, but
you were getting ready, and you. I don't think you're ready yet to start predicting some of the NCAA scores.
No, I need to see. But I will say Syracuse is 30-1 to win the ACC tournament. I would put $5 on Syracuse.
You would.
They have everything to play for.
Do they have enough to be a Cinderella team?
Yes.
They do. Mm-hmm. So it's execution. Coaching really matters in college, doesn't it?
Boeheim's a great coach.
What kind of money do they get, these college coaches? They get a couple of million, don't they?
I think Boeheim gets $2 million a year, plus they have the Nike deal, plus they do local radio. I think Krzyzewski gets...
Well, Krzyzewski's probably gets more than $2 million.
Yeah,
no?
I think he's close to 6, plus the sneakers. The sneaker deal is that's the real.
Will Rick Pitino ever come back?
He'd be a great Knicks coach, right?
Wouldn't he?
I would love to see that.
But what's his... didn't he get accused of stuff but now never convicted?
He was accused, denied, and quit. So what does that tell you?
He quit because he was probably guilty.
Exactly.
And why wasn't he prosecuted? Or did what he was accused of, was it not against the law, just against NCAA rules? Didn't have to do with recruiting?
It was a Me Too type grabby thing with a woman.
Oh, Me Too grabby. I wonder how serious. Me Too. That's not Me Too grabbing, by the way. I don't do that sort of thing. All right, what else is going on in the world of sports? What else is tickling your fancy these days? And your observations on the train. Are there less people, more people? What are you seeing?
It seemed very quiet today.
It is quiet. It is very quiet. And there are less people running for the trains than we usually see, and less numbers of cars out there. Now, in the lot, there are less numbers of cars as well in the lot upstairs where I park. So I don't know if you've noticed that as well.
I take the train.
Is anything in Mamaroneck where you live, anything different there?
I took a walk on Sunday. It was a beautiful day on Sunday, and it was just like the Twilight Zone. Everything was... There's a school there,
Chatsworth.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right near where I live, and that is closed down, so I think people are staying away. Strange days, Bob. Strange days.
I got a couple of questions for you while we're at it. We often tell people. So, do you have anything else? Because then I have a line of questioning for you. Anything else you want to get out?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You were a comedian for 15 years, something most of us will never do. Okay. That's got to be a tough life. But what's the best thing about it? For you to do it 15 years, there have to be things that you loved.
Yeah, you make your own hours, freedom.
Yeah. Freedom. What about the performance?
When it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's really bad.
How do you get over that? You have to have
You
thick
have
skin.
to teach yourself how to.
Now, let's say you bomb and it's Monday night and you've got another gig Tuesday, same place, or you're going to drive to another place. How long before it's out of your system?
Depends what kind of night you have.
You bomb. If you bomb.
Depends what kind of night you have after that.
Ah, okay. Now, I've listening to Howard Stern and other people like that, and they talk about comedians bombing. Of course, you can bomb on the radio too. You just don't hear the radios going off. What is it that you have a bad crowd? Is it that your timing's off?
Well, that's what you tell yourself.
Yeah, but is it that the jokes didn't resonate with those particular people? Or sometimes I've seen crowds. I have a friend of mine who's a stand-up. There's only 6-7 people in the audience. That's got to be tough.
Well, you make do. I remember doing a show with 3 people and just pulling them all at the table together and sitting down with them.
That's what I would do too if I was it.
Yeah.
Now, in a typical year, how many gigs will you have?
I don't know. 4 nights a week.
4 nights a week.
Couple shows.
Now, will you be all over the country generally, or did you try and get like a gig where you stayed in the same spot?
I like to stay in the same spot.
Same spot. Did you
New
have
York,
any?
California, Florida.
New York, California, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
How often would you change your act?
Change my what?
Change your act. Change your sets.
I would have it. I was meticulous with it, so I would change maybe a word in a sentence.
Okay. Now, did you do that whole act for the same year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I wanted it like I just wanted it in so I could tell it standing backwards on my head. I just wanted it like
okay. And
like a reflex.
How often would you come up with new stuff?
I was stupid about it. I would write a joke and I would like it, and then I would work on it and work on it and work on it, and every sentence, every word. and just try and make it as perfect as I could get it.
And then when would you put it into the act?
When I memorized it.
Well, after you memorized it? Mm-hmm. But in other words, how often? How long is the typical set?
The longest I ever did was 20 minutes, and I did 20 minutes without telling a joke. Just
riffing, talking to people,
exactly.
Seeing what that's fun. Yeah, I've done that as an MC,
yes.
but never as a stand-up and delivering punchlines. Why'd you leave it? Falling in love, settling down.
Yeah, get old. You can't. It's not. You know,
well, you're still a young man.
You see people, my age, and they're, shuffling into the comedy club doing their 10 minutes, and it's kind of depressing when you look at it.
Was it a hard decision to make when you made it?
No.
You were done.
It was. I'm glad I did it. I think it gave me an incredible skill set.
Well, wow, yeah.
And I would recommend it to anybody. I would say go do that. You can study broadcasting at college. That's great, but actually go. Try your. Make your bones. Go try an open mic night. See what happens.
We're talking with Jake Schaefer now. Jake, as you know, does sports for us. He knows how to handicap. He's a good card player, too. Very smart guy. Produces segments for us. But also, we don't talk a lot about it, and this gave us an opportunity. 15 years on the stand-up circuit. And anyone who performs in any way, whether it's radio, acting, it is the tightrope act of performance art. And it takes thick skin. And whenever I listen, one of the nice things about Stern is he'll have a guy on the great comics, and they all bomb. And they said that's how they got better. But I can't even imagine what that's like. What about hecklers? How do you deal with hecklers? Did you get many hecklers?
I loved them. Take a heckle and just
because you got a sharp edge.
Put the attention right on them.
And what
okay, why didn't you like that joke? Explain to me. Tell me what was wrong with that joke.
Go
Please
ahead.
Tell me. Give them a little rope to hang themselves.
Do they usually?
Of course.
Have most hecklers drunk?
Of course.
Okay, they're drunk and they're heckling. You ever get anything thrown at you?
No.
Never did, because I know a lot of people have. So you've done a 20-minute set without a joke. Mm-hmm. That I could see doing that. Now, do you ever get that? Do you MC events as a result? Do you ever do that as well?
I have, yes. I did it was a strip club, but it was what's the word? It's not transgender. It was drag queens.
Okay, drag queens. Okay.
I got to host a drag queens night.
Because those are really
Tampa,
really entertaining events. If you like that kind of thing, they do really well. Now, what city was your home city when you were in Florida? Was it Tampa? Was it the West Coast?
St. Pete.
It's a nice St. Pete. Do you know, I once I gave a speech at the Don Cesar, that pink hotel down there.
That's where my sister got engaged.
Is that right? I got stuck in an elevator there. There's a whole history in that hotel.
It's beautiful there.
It's a beautiful hotel. Is it still pink?
It is.
I haven't been there for 25 years, but I love the West Coast of Florida. I really did.
I mean, with this virus, we were looking at flights to St. Pete's. Oh my gosh.
Cheap?
Just don't touch anyone.
So go in like a plastic bubble case.
$200 round trip.
Round trip to St. Pete?
Mm-hmm.
Now, where's Naples and all that? A friend of mine just bought a house in Naples. Is that in Central Florida? Where's Naples?
I think it's 100 miles.
It's amazing where people go. All right, so now one more question before we part.
Got a good book here. You'd like this one.
Let's see. Chaos. Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. You would like to read, do you?
I do.
Me too. Yeah, I've got, wow. Chaos. The book is called Praise for Chaos, a library book. Smart guy, buy too many books. Gripping, masterful stuff, a dazzling and compelling, obsessed journalistic detective story that invites you down a rabbit hole to a sex, drugs, and celebrity cult leader, America.
It's just, I'm just obsessed with what the CIA was able to do in the 40s, the 50s, and 60s. How they would just, the mind control aspect of...
And then using LSD and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really scary once you... Bobby Kennedy, Saran didn't... He was just...
You think he was led to do that?
He was... He didn't... He had a cap gun. He didn't...
Okay, I've got to do this for you then. I have a good relationship with the predominant CIA writer of this era, Ron Kessler. We'll get him on. You can talk to him about it. He's written some great books. His best book, though, most interesting, is the CIA book. No, actually, he's got two. One about the FBI, one about the CIA. And the stuff that stands out in the book about the Secret Service. Let me be sure I reset my phones here. In his book about the Secret Service, he talks about, for example, how even though he was a decent, kind man, how anal, for example, President Carter was, that he actually handled the schedule for the tennis courts, things like that. Or that, when he would carry his own bag on the plane to show it was empty, things like that, little things like that. Or he kept the nuclear football, a mile from his front door at where the CIA post was. But the most interesting thing about the FBI book and the CIA book is when they're going into a house where they need to bug it, they will actually create a fake house front that mimics the house so that they can go in behind it and do work. And then in some cases, people get sick or get cut or there's an accident, how they have to clean it up. And they have repairmen and electronic. You probably love that.
The Sopranos episode when they planted the lamp in Tony's basement.
Yeah.
When they had to, create the fake lamp.
Yeah.
Tony's fake lamp that they had in his basement.
Well, you'd like that. We'll get Kessler on for you. You would really enjoy that. Okay, one more question, I promise.
7:19.
How?
7:19.
It's 8:19.
Cloudy
No,
skies.
You will get used to it. Okay.
Overcast.
See, now I am the victim. I am the victim of his humor, folks. We're going to get the mayor on in a minute. As soon as
I need to have a word with him.
No, this is a different mayor. All right, now, did you see it coming? Did you see the end of your comedy career coming? Was the last year a chore, or did you just say it's time and when this contract is up, I'm done?
It just got old. You gotta be young and stupid to do it.
Well,
that's the truth.
Okay. All right, Jake Schaefer, everybody. A very interesting guy. You'll be hearing a lot more from him. It is actually 8:20, despite what Jake wants to say.
Hazy overcast.
Jake Schaefer, thank you very much. It's hazy and overcast at 7:20 because I didn't... Another cop in my life. All righty. We go straight to our next guest. Our next guest, no stranger to us. She's still a new mayor. It's hard to believe that we're only a week into March, and she's only been on the job 2 months and a week. And all kinds of things are making news in her city, and so too is she as she gets off to the start she has. Please welcome the mayor of Mount Vernon. I almost said Andrews Stewart Cousins because of the three words, but she's the leader of the Senate. Sean Patterson Howard. Good morning, Mayor. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Pretty good. You're one busy woman. We saw that piece, and we don't know if it's had any effect on you, but we talked a little bit about it earlier with a guest. We saw the piece about no one's ever been arrested, et cetera, regarding the Memorial Field. Has any of that analysis affected you or that story in any way? Have you been asked about it?
No, not at all. It's interesting. That was a piece that was talked about for a long time. I know Mayor Thomas at one time said he was going to go after that person, and then Andre Wallace said that they were going to go after that person. And Mount Vernon has spent lots of money in investigations and legal fees to kind of recoup monies here and there. They've spent almost as much money in those type of fees as they've gotten back. So, right now I am focused on getting Memorial Field built and done. We met with the County Board of Legislators yesterday, and we will have a hearing, the final hearing for Memorial Field, I believe, on the 23rd of this month. So I would love to find out who dumped, and I would love to recoup money for the expenses that we've had to outlay as a city. Mm-hmm. But right now, I am focused on making sure that Memorial Field gets built.
Well, of course, and kudos to you and the county for moving forward with that. Has the comptroller showed up yet? Have his people showed up yet regarding your issues with your comptroller, I should say?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Here's hoping that then when they come this time, they stay. As you know, it's my own thing. I've been very hard on him for the way the comptroller's office behaved in the Thomas administration. Hopefully you will get a better result than they did. What else is going on? You are, again, only in your third month and embroiled in so many projects. What's at the top of your agenda, Mayor?
Clearly getting the financial house in order is critical. Right now everyone is talking about coronavirus, and because of the fiscal dysfunctions in the city, we have no relationships. The relationships with our vendors have really ceased because the comptroller just won't pay people and won't pay them in a timely manner. And so we had to go to the county to get some additional supplies for our first responders to address the coronavirus issue. We went to a fire. We had a big all-hands multi-alarm fire in Mount Vernon on Friday. And when I arrived to the scene, and after about a half an hour, firefighters were asking for water, and they usually have bottled water in the trucks. Mm-hmm. There was no bottled water on their trucks. I had to send my security detail to the supermarket to buy cases of water.
Mayor,
I said, why don't y'all have water? They said, because we can't get a purchase order from the comptroller's office to order water.
Mayor, I've got to ask you this. Again, the way things ended in the last administration, I'm not going to beat that horse, not today anyway. But why has she not been impeached? Is it because the city council won't do it?
Well, we don't have the ability to do it.
The count that you don't have in the city charter, and I know I'm ignorant here.
No, the city council does not have the ability to do it. She can only be removed by the state comptroller.
Ah, yes. Back to Mr. Wussbunny. Yes, continue.
Or the governor.
Okay, and they've avoided your city. Lyndon Williams made some strong assertions about that, and I don't know what to say. I'll go with the quote. He thinks that if it wasn't a black city, they might have acted. I don't know how you feel about that, but it certainly is a fair statement.
I've said in the past that, and Mount Vernon has allowed to twist in the wind.
Yes.
Period. And I do not believe that not even that it's a black city, that it's a black leader. And it's also a black woman. I don't think that there is a lot of rush to take a African American, especially an African American woman, out of office.
Well,
people are very cautious about being called racist and interfering.
But even in
at the same time, you're sitting back in that political caution, and you're allowing our community to implode. I've even had someone say, "Well, y'all voted them in." I was like, "Okay, so just punish the community for years because of that mistake." It's I don't know. Look, at this time, I'd really love for the comptroller to come down and take over the finances of the city.
Oh, good for you. And Mayor, if I may,
if I have to give up a little bit of fiscal control, I have none anyhow. So if the comptroller wanted to come down and said that they felt that they needed to come in and take over the financial operations of the city and stabilize it, or they wanted to put a control board in place, as happened in Yonkers years ago when they were trying to get their fiscal house in order, I would have no problem with that.
Mayor, we're talking with Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, and wow. This is refreshing, just in general, to have a public official be so candid, and I really appreciate it. What's interesting? If I may, and I'm obviously not a black person, but maybe from my perch I can see it better. Sometimes racism, with the best of intentions, rears its head, and people don't realize it's rearing its head, because a black comptroller, the best way we can be race neutral, if indeed she should be removed, a black controller in an 80% black city that is, and we should be happy to say, run. The last 3 or 4 mayors were African Americans. The entire city council since Ms. Puzo left, it's a black city council with a black controller. They should not at all be reluctant to do that. It's very interesting.
Very interesting.
Indeed. Now, you've brought this breath of fresh air, and it's sweeping through the city, just listening to you. Where do you go from here? When the comptroller comes in and you offer those things, and they see that, and here you are, a strong a capable woman, and I'm not going to say a black woman, I'm almost tired of that part of it. You have the goods. You have an executive career. Where do you want to go after that? What can help you get the fiscal house in order, and where do you go from there? Where are you going to take the city? You're going to get Memorial Field built. What's next?
Oh, so Memorial Field, we expect it to be done by the fall of 2021. As I said, we presented before the committee yesterday, the Finance Committee of the County Board of Legislators. There were 14 in the room and one on the phone, so clearly a majority were in attendance and participating because the county is committed $29,600,000 to this project.
Mm-hmm.
$5 million comes from the state, $20 million from the county, and a little over $3 million was debt that was on this project from the first go round of the $9 million that was given back in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So it's become a $29 million project. We had to answer lots of questions about the use of the field and the operation of the field and the availability of the field. What are our plans for maintaining it once this major capital expenditure is given? And I think we were able to satisfy a lot of the questions. As I said, on the 23rd, we will bring our community up there, our young people, our seniors who walk at the field, our community members, our sports teams, and we will make the final case for this Thursday. There is a bidders conference and walkthrough at Memorial Field.
Mm-hmm.
So the county is really moving forward because there is a very strict timetable to getting this done. So Thursday, those who are interested in bidding on this project will come to Memorial Field for a walkthrough, and we anticipate really breaking ground by May.
That's wonderful.
And this is the real groundbreaking. I think we have had a groundbreaking under Clinton Young, under Ernie Davis, under Richard Thomas.
You've had an earthquake.
You had a cleanup kickoff under acting Mayor Wallace. I mean, I'd have to say that I'm not being funny.
No, because they did it with the best of intentions, all of them.
For kickoffs and for groundbreakings, the community has become very jaded. Very jaded. They're like, okay, here we are again. Memorial Field's going to be done. We've had so many starts and so many stops, and then the battery continues to die, or no one passes the baton to the next runner, so we could never make it around the track to the finish line because each person wants to run a 100-yard race instead of a 4x100-yard race and pass the baton. So,
how are some of the lawsuits? Are they getting in the way? For example, the demolition and the subsequent lawsuit from the former tennis owners who own the tennis, and we still have to get, I guess, underneath some of the remnants of that to test the soil. I guess we just have to work our way through that.
Yeah, I mean, we're working our way through that. We've been able to show that the soil under the tennis courts. This was done before this was completed in 2014, before
Mm-hmm.
the dumping started to occur in 2015. We've been able to demonstrate that. We are waiting for the DEC to sign off on a final agreement that the soil under the tennis court was not the same as the soil that was dumped. And so it can be removed by regular means. But those tennis courts will have to be removed as they do stand in the way of the footprint of the football field and the track. And other tennis courts will be moved and pushed further behind, pushed back.
Okay, so they will have to be pushed back inevitably anyway. That probably would.
Yes.
I should think that'll affect some sort of a sensible settlement with the former owners as well. We're talking with Sean.
Well, they're not owners; they were leasers.
Leasers,
and,
okay.
That's all still. That's a whole separate issue.
No, I know, and it's a court issue, so we won't get into that, at least at this point in time. Our guest again, Sean Patterson Howard, the mayor of Mount Vernon. Now, were you able, what with some of the issues going on between your office and the comptroller's office, were you able to hire the chief of staff that you wanted, and are you able to make the other personnel decisions that you needed to make?
We are waiting for salary resolutions to be completed and passed so that we can have those positions are funded in the budget. The comptroller sent back emails saying that she didn't recognize the budget and that the budget wasn't a real budget because she told me to make corrections. And, we said, no, this is a budget that's been adopted by the city council. It had been passed on to the city council by the Board of Estimate, and it's been adopted. So it is the budget. And the corrections that she wanted me to make was to her temporary line, whereby she uses that money to pay her grandchild's father.
Excuse me?
Yes. Well, that was in Jonathan Bandler's story.
Yes. But people may not have read it. Okay. This job is going to make you start drinking. This is an individual that's working as a security guard in her office.
This is an individual by which she accused the fire department of unethically keeping him from becoming a fireman. He passed, the fire department test is a pass-fail, and then you get another grade from the agility test. In Mount Vernon, because of an old lawsuit by the Vulcans, which were the Black Firefighter Association, Mount Vernon is under a consent decree that Mount Vernon hires people from the Mount Vernon list. Okay? Most communities give preference to their residents.
Of course.
You're using taxpayer money, you hire residents. And so you take and you pass the written exam, but there's a second part, and that's the agility test. And if you're not a Mount Vernon resident, you don't get to take the agility test until the Mount Vernon list is expired or exhausted.
Understood.
This individual was not a Mount Vernon resident at the time that he took the written test. And so even if he moved into Mount Vernon, clearly he still is on an external list. He lives in Yonkers. And because of that, there were emails that went back and forth saying that they had messed with civil service law and they were manipulating the law, and she was going to do an audit and an investigation into why they were not allowing him to take the agility test. Clearly, again, our paperwork, our consent decree, our job posting says that Mount Vernon residents are the ones that will be hired first, and that we have to exhaust the list. So in October of 2019, we had 11 vacancies, and we were ready to hire these firefighters.
Wow.
Mount Vernon was prepared to send them to the academy, and they were not able to be hired. The fire department had to stop the process. They had vetted everyone, done all of the background checks, paperwork, and there were some people who were in the process of quitting their jobs so that they can come on and go into the fire academy, and it all had to be stopped because the comptroller told Mayor Wallace and Teddy Beal, who was the commissioner at that time, and Deborah Norman, who was the deputy commissioner, that they could not hire them. Now, and some of that is what she put in writing. You do not hire or fire anyone. But then told people verbally that if you hire them, you're going to jail. It's really interesting. Former acting Mayor Wallace is always very vocal and verbal when he saw injustice, but he's very quiet about this incident and how the comptroller treated him once she finished utilizing him to get Richard Thomas out of office.
Well, that's what I was going to mention that, and I because this is your time, and you're this breath of fresh air, and I didn't want to spend any time defending certain things that Thomas did. I do that as a separate issue. But, I'm worried that you would be, and again, how people respond to it is different. We don't want to be here 6 months from now and 10 months from now, where the comptroller is keeping you from paying bills and keeping your garbage trucks or your fire engines and all these different things from something's got to be done.
Something has to be done.
And believe me when I tell you, from this bully pulpit, we keep yelling and screaming. But I'm sure just listening to you, you obviously, you're ready for this. What are the next steps for you in terms of dealing with what we can describe loosely as a renegade controller?
You said Yeah, I mean, definitely. She is definitely a renegade controller who feels that she has the right to run the city. We have lawsuits that have been settled. We have lawsuits that have been ordered for payment by the courts, and she refuses to pay them. She refuses. And so now these are things that have gone through court, that have been settled, and the judge has ordered Mount Vernon to pay, and she has not paid.
Well,
and so
I know
now we're paying interest on these lawsuits because she chooses not to pay them.
And your predecessor, as you know, and again, I don't know all the details, but as you know, got a court order for her to open up the books, and she still didn't do it, and the judge didn't do anything. Where are the judges in this? Now, if you have these cases where these judges have ordered her to pay, has she countersued, or have the judges not exercised their authority, Mayor?
I mean, I have to go back and look more into where that lies. There's just been so much. That's something that we might have to bring back up. Hopefully that's something that we can get addressed when the state comptroller comes here, because I think the court system is tired of really navigating and dealing with Mount Vernon's day-to-day operational issues. But I can tell you some of the other things that we work.
Yes, I'd love to hear
that.
On.
I'd
like to, but also let me just draw a line here, though. I just so you can move on to other things. Any way we can help you get redress at the government level, I'm sure, though, Mayor, with your gravitas, if you have to get in a car and drive up to Albany and pound on the controller's door, you will. So let's move on. You're only tuned, and I hope people are listening to how engaged you are on all these issues. Let's talk about what else you're doing.
I mean, some of the things that we're focusing on right now, and I think all throughout Westchester, they're focusing on this, is the census. The 2020 census is among us. And, I hope that everyone is completing their census online. April 1st, we will have a good idea as to where, communities are, and where they'll be kicking off the community canvassing, really trying to reach those people who have not responded. The census is critical. $800 billion a year comes down from the federal government to state, county, and local municipalities based off of your census numbers. That's a lot of money.
That's an enormous amount of money.
It's an enormous amount of money, and I don't think people understand. So everything from schools, paving of roads, building of hospitals, job training programs and opportunities, ESL classes, medical benefits, Medicaid, Medicare, health systems being built, community health centers. All of that is based on the census. When communities want to apply for funding and they have to do their statement of need, that's based on the demographics and your community level information. Mm-hmm. And so the census is very critical. And, the ones that are often undercounted are those who are of color or those who are poor. Those who are, maybe undocumented and immigrants who are afraid that they could be deported. This is not a count of citizens. It is a count of people who live in your community. So whether a person is documented or undocumented, we still need to have them counted. But there is such an issue around trust. There is a lot of fear. What are people going to do with my information? I might live in a 2-family house, but there are 4 families living here.
Of course.
So we don't want everyone to be counted because maybe someone will find out that, our house is overpopulated.
Yeah, or that they're not here legally.
Right.
But does Mount Vernon have a large Latino population that may
Absolutely.
Be here? Okay.
Absolutely. You said we're an 80% black community, and
yes.
That's not true any longer.
Okay.
And I believe that this census, if we do it the right way, will really prove that I believe that the Hispanic Latino community is easily about 25%.
Well, it's 29.
Of our residents.
Mayor, it's 29% here in New Rochelle. So, yeah, that makes sense to us. Continue, please.
So, we want to do that. I had our Councilman Griffith and our Councilman Thompson on my Sundays with Sean show on Sunday evening.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the simplest ways that I think we could describe it. If you're inviting people to your house and they tell you that they're bringing 10 people, then you prepare for 10 people. If they show up with 20 or 30 people, you're not prepared to serve them. And whatever you have, you might have to make it stretch or disinvite them. Well, that's the thing. Right now in Mount Vernon, our number is somewhere around 68,000, but we are serving over 105,000 people in Mount Vernon.
Do you know what? One of the, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but for the benefit of our listeners, the census people are paying well for people to go out and count. It seems to me that in the city of Mount Vernon, not only it'd be an opportunity to get the number right, or as right as could be, and also provide some jobs for a while.
Absolutely. They're paying between $20 and $23 an hour for people to go out and knock doors. One of the challenges in this kind of season of coronavirus is that face-to-face contact.
Yeah.
I mean, district leaders are having hard times getting signatures all throughout the state, and now with this moving to a state of emergency, more social isolation is happening. I know, especially in Rochelle, with kind of the numbers that you're experiencing there.
Oh, yeah.
There's great concern, but I hope that this does not impact the census and for our ability to reach people the way that we want to. We are working with our churches, our neighborhood associations, our civic groups, our chamber, our business community, our schools, to ensure that we are able to reach out to people and get them counted, making sure that we're going into our senior buildings, because a lot of the census is being done online, but not everyone is connected to online. So how can we ensure that we're counting our seniors, because we have to serve them? It's just of critical importance right now, and so that is definitely a big focus in Mount Vernon. Clearly, the summer is coming, and we're going to be doing some special projects around our playgrounds and upgrading a few of our playgrounds. Baseball season is about to start, and so we're excited about that, and we have people who will be sponsoring the different teams. And that might all sound unimportant when you compare it to what's going on with the comptroller, but the community still has to run.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we still have to take care of our kids and our seniors.
If I may underscore that, no, it is important. It's part of the social life and the fabric of any city. The young people, education, sports, a census, these are all important things.
And I think people are just getting a sense of Mount Vernon pride again, and so we want to make sure that we're supporting those efforts. And clearly around economic development, we are continuing to work within our planning department. We're looking to bring on a planning commissioner and a head of IDA and kind of strengthen and build up our economic development arm here in the city of Mount Vernon. We are meeting with different potential investors who have invested in property in Mount Vernon and are now moving through the planning process, the zoning process, the architectural review board process to get their projects off the ground or move them further. There are different retail establishments that are coming and meeting with us that are very interested in coming into Mount Vernon. And as we move along this new budget and we're able to start pivoting and focusing on our comprehensive plan, that's going to be critical to the future of success of Mount Vernon. Our comprehensive plan, our comprehensive land use plan, has not been done since 1968.
Excuse me? 1968?
Yes, the year of my birth, Bob, 1968.
Mayor, this has been a great interview until that moment because I was 18. Ouch. The year of your birth. Actually, that's incredible, Mayor, though. My goodness. Has no one wanted to look at it, other orders ahead, or just...
Well, I know Clinton Young had started the process, and he had used Fred Fish to do a lot of the comprehensive plan, but it was never finalized, it was never ratified, it was never adopted, it was never put into place. And so now here we are 10 years later. Most communities do theirs every 10 years or update it every 5 years. And so we can go back and look at the work that was done back in 2010, but insofar as community charrettes and conversations and data that needs to be collected, and looking at how, maybe industries have changed and shifted, we have to really, really go back to the beginning of the drawing board. I believe there are some things from the 2010 one that was started that we could utilize, but, there's just so much more that has to be done.
Wow, for sure. It is 8:47, 3 more minutes with the mayor of Mount Vernon. Mayor, I'd like you to be able to take this time to shout out one question and then to shout out to your citizens with any message that you want. But your city's notorious. We have A.J. Woodson and others on. And unfortunately, there are a lot of different interest groups there. Are you feeling support in general from all of them yet? Answer that, and then anything you want to say with the last 2 minutes.
Look, we are getting a lot of support from the community of Mount Vernon.
That's good.
There are always going to be critics. There are some people who are invested in seeing me not be successful. And, I told them, I said, that's just really interesting. People are like, oh, she's going to fall on her face. We hope that she fails. That's fine. That's the way you feel. But that just shows me and others around you that you don't really care about Mount Vernon, because my success and failure is going to be tied into Mount Vernon's success and failure. Mm-hmm. If I fail, then Mount Vernon fails. Yeah, if you try and come in and undercut anything that we're doing for the next 4 years or make anything that we're trying to do seem negative, then Mount Vernon continues to stay embroiled in what people have become exhausted by. Right now we have people who are interested in investing in Mount Vernon, people of all different ethnicities and socioeconomic groups. There are a lot of opportunities that lay ahead for Mount Vernon, and those are things that we're focusing on. No one likes... I'm not looking for everyone to support me. That's unrealistic.
That's not realistic, right?
That's not realistic. But what I can say is I don't spend a lot of time on them.
No,
I don't ignore them. I just don't invest my time in those who are not interested in being supportive of this administration, but more importantly, who are not supportive in seeing Mount Vernon move into where we should be.
Okay. Anything in the final minute, anything you'd like to say to your constituents?
Look, there are great opportunities for people to become involved. We are encouraging people to continue to come out into council meetings. There are lots of opportunities that will be coming up in the spring and the summer for people to continue to volunteer. We're doing really, really great work on our transition teams, and we're looking forward to the reports that they are going to produce. We will have our State of the City address March 25th at our regularly scheduled City Council meeting, and then by mid-April we will have a more extended kind of 100-day presentation in Town Hall where we're looking to share with the community some of what we found and what our plans are to move Mount Vernon together. So we're working. We're working on everything from economic development to public safety, human services, the infrastructure in Mount Vernon. We are moving community engagement. We're not letting any grass grow under our feet, nor are we sitting around lamenting over some of the challenges that we're experiencing in the community. We're making adjustments, and we're pushing forward.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much. And as we said, you ever need to get the word out, you need a forum, you need our help, we're here. Thank you so very much. Mayor Shawn Patterson Howard, she is the mayor of Mount Vernon. Coming up next, another one of our local local journalists, Delphine Hussler, will be with us in a moment. He is, of course, the editor and publisher of the Yonkers Insider. Let's take another look at the weather. The weather is kind of cloudy right now. We're up to, it's 56 already. We're going to get up to 65 today. It's going to be cloudy later on with some rain, a little bit of rain into the evening. Temperatures getting into 40, down to 42, pardon me. Wednesday, sunshine followed by increasing clouds. Temperatures averaging out near 60. Thursday, temperatures in the mid-50s, partly sunny, overnight low 39. And Friday, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The high will be 59 degrees. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And the bottom, or rather the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, is supported by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And we go now to our next guest. Del Huesler is, he does a lot of stuff now on the internet as well, in terms of video, etc. He's been managing the Yonkers Insider news outlet for some time. Please welcome Del Huesler. Good morning, Del. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing tremendous today.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you. How is Yonkers, you haven't been in the news, fortunately, over it, but how is Yonkers dealing with the coronavirus, your schools, your businesses, etc.?
It seems that the schools, I guess, are playing a wait and see attitude. I guess at this point, it's more they've kept the schools open. Although there have been some events in Yonkers that have been canceled due to the coronavirus, but I guess people waiting to see when the next shoe's going to drop, when something's going to happen with the Yonkers schools.
Okay, and but so far so good. What about the demand for water and other things? How's that going?
Actually, what I've been doing through my reporting is that I've been finding a lot of these supplies now are getting, there's not too much of sanitizers in Yonkers right now because the supply, I guess, is going down, and also the supply of masks as well.
Well, the supplies of masks, yeah, you can't get them. You can't get water. You can't get hand sanitizers.
That's true, yes.
Although you know who has them? The dollar stores. No one's going to the dollar stores.
That's true. No, that is absolutely true. Absolutely.
They're going to some of the larger outlets. What stories are you covering in Yonkers that you want to tee up this morning?
What I want to basically covering as we head toward a month away from the May's proposed budget. Interested to see how the budget dance in Yonkers will happen this year again. It all seems to be a yearly thing in terms of Yonkers always facing a big budget deficit and always looking for money. So we'll be interested to see how the Yonkers City budget, how the proposed budget from the mayor next month will look like, and to see how much Yonkers will be in deficit and how much the dance will always go on. I've always wanted to see the dance stop. Where basically Yonkers is doing good with economic development. My question always is we're doing good with economic development. How come we always run these bad budget years?
Well, one of the things I've always found amusing about your city is how, because the school system is attached to the city budget, I find that always to be problematic for you. That and your police department, where you always seem to run all of this overtime so that you don't really have to budget for it. At least that's been my observation over the years.
That's true. No, absolutely. We like you say, the school system is in the Yonkers City budget. There's other municipalities that have an independent school district. So those are things that have been discussed throughout the years. And also the other issue you bring up also, which is a good one, is about police overtime as well. That's also got to be something that should be looked at. In terms of the administration of the Yonkers Police Department.
Well, your colleague, you know him well, Hezi Harris, is always reporting about the overtime and overtime being given to favorites, etc. But yeah, it is a good question why the budget in your city is always problematic. I mean, it is a big city. What is it, the fourth largest city in the state or fifth, something like that?
Actually, when the census comes back, the talk is Yonkers will be the third largest city in New York State. At least that's the talk.
No kidding. Behind what? Behind Syracuse?
Yes.
Wow.
I believe so. But like I say, I think it's going to be a very interesting budget year because, like I say, we always have trouble with our budget for some reason. There's always a lot of economic development going on. But my question always is, are those economic development projects given back to the city? And it seems to always be a problem. And like you also say, which also is a good point, is the school system is attached, and the talk is that there's going to be another big deficit in the school system as well. So it kind of puts a drain on the budget as well a little bit. And
my guess is
it's been talked about for years, in terms of having independent school districts, because a lot of other places have budget votes in terms of the schools.
Well, a lot of it I understand, and I'm going to remind people, my guest, Delphine Huchler, he is the managing editor and publisher of the Yonkers Insider. Regarding your schools, though, aren't they dependent on this weird formula that the state has, and Yonkers is always saying it never gets enough?
Yes, no, that has always been the complaint with Yonkers. In fact, Yonkers wants to have a bigger piece of the pie in terms of the video lottery terminals. Apparently, within the last couple of years, the money we get from the state from the video lottery terminals had gone down, and also MGM at Empire City wants to have full gaming. They're trying to get the full gaming license from New York State, and I think New York State is trying to hold off on that for a couple of years, maybe. And so it seems to be a lot of issues going on, and the formula is always on top of the list. That is actually usually one of the top news stories we have in Yonkers. Always talk about the formula that we have for education.
Any other stories you're working on that you want to shout out about, or you want to draw attention?
Basically, just myself starting to do some research, starting to look at some of these primaries and some of these elections coming up, because should be some interesting races. Because like we talked about last time, neither Lowey's congressional seats going to be an interesting one with so many candidates running.
Yes.
Elliot Engel looks like he's going to have a primary for his seat. And also we have a Yonkers City Court judge race in the city of Yonkers, where there's 5 Democrats currently petitioning to try and get in the ballot. So it's probably going to be a primary there as well. So it should be some interesting primaries coming up. There's some interesting to be able to talk about.
Well, we'll start talking about them soon. After all, the primaries are in June, and don't forget the district attorney's race as well.
That's true. Yes,
that's a big
absolutely.
race.
That is absolutely true as well. Yes.
A TV commentator versus a long-time guy on the bench, although she was a prosecutor for many years as well. Del, thank you very much. It's good to have you back in the lineup.
My pleasure. Talk to you next week.
All right, take care. Del Huchler, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. You can go and get yourself a coffee or something like that. We're going to open up a couple of windows because it's warm in here. This is Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone, and let's see what we got coming up. All right, we're going to be talking with Jack Breslin. Jack Breslin is a mass communications and ethics professor, a bastion of free speech. He committed to that. We're going to talk with him about 2 things. The hypocrisy, at least as I see it, of the left in banning a book by someone they don't agree with because it doesn't suit the needs of the Me Too movement, even though the Me Too movement overall is a great thing. And, of course, the president now suing CNN, the Washington Post, and the New York Times. We'll be right back. You stay right there. A little different music for you. I just got to open some windows. Hello again. If you saw me kneeling down behind the camera, it's because I was turning the heat completely off. It was on for overnight. As we come up now on 9:01, we're going to be talking with Professor Breslin at 9:05, but we have some people to thank and things to do, so let's get to that. And you're going to hear a little bit of ambient noise because I have the door wide open. It really was that hot in here. We're headed straight for the long-form, single-hour interview, and that will be with Professor Breslin. But first, we need to have another look at the weather. As you know, it's a 56. At least that's what it is right now. It's going to get up to 65 today, and maybe a little bit of rain later on. And the long-form interview is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhdc.org. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, and Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Now, some of the stories that we try to disabuse people of worrying about today. One is whether or not the New Rochelle public schools would be closed. They are open, as you know, and the governor suggested yesterday that they might have to close at some point. That has not been the case, and the schools are committed to staying open, unless, of course, someone reports to school has the virus or comes from one of the families that does. We know that many of you are looking for hand sanitizer, but what we can tell you is that the state has prisoners now making something called New York State Clean Hand Sanitizer that will also fit the bill, and that should be available shortly. Also, now this just in, Americans over 60, especially those with underlying health conditions, should stock up on food and prepare to isolate themselves at home, since they are the most at risk from getting seriously ill from the coronavirus. Does that mean I shouldn't be here at the train station? The advice is among the new recommendations from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, and stems partly from a new study of the 70,000 Chinese patients with the virus. Now, here's a list of the schools that are closed. The Harvey School, Port Chester, Scarsdale, Somers, East Ramapo. Iona College is canceling all classes for the rest of the week, effective 10 o'clock last night. The Masters School in Dobbs Ferry, which serves residential and day students in grades 5 through 12, has canceled classes this week because of the increasing number of COVID-19 cases in our area. Annunciation School, a Catholic elementary school in Crestwood, is closed on Monday and Tuesday. That's today, because of one of its students had been close to someone who tested positive. Mount Pleasant Cottage School, Union Free School District, which serves residential and day students at Edenwald School and Cottage School, is closed. Westchester Torah Academy, the private Jewish day school in White Plains, is closed until March 16th. And the Westchester Day School, it's a private school in Mamaroneck, and it will be closed until March 17th. That after a student tested positive for coronavirus, according to a message on the village website. Now, one school, the private Keio Academy, Keio of New York, it's up in Purchase. They're closing for the remainder of the school year over concerns about the virus. This, according to the director of development. And what you're seeing now, going back to New Rochelle just for a moment, New Rochelle has been at night absolutely scrubbing down their classrooms. And we want to make you aware of that. So they're trying to make it as safe as is possible. And in some cases, the head of the Transportation Authority did say today that maybe you shouldn't get on a subway if you do not have to, or if a car is crowded, maybe you should go into the next car. That's a tough sell for people who have to get to work. Now, the president is looking into different ways to make up for that, perhaps some sort of a getting either businesses or the government to pay for more sick time. He's also looking at the possibility of a short-term cut to your income tax deductions to put more money in your pocket during this crisis for supplies or whatever. So that's what we know. Now, in terms of numbers, there are 142 cases in New York, 98 right here in Westchester. So, and these are the numbers, and I will riddle them off to you. In New York, this is New York State, Westchester 82, New York City, of course, the 5 boroughs, 12, Nassau County 5, Rockland County 2, Saratoga 2, Suffolk 1, and Ulster 1. That's not exactly catastrophic, but it is what it is, and particularly here in New Rochelle, there's a lot of concern. And that's what we know right now. Oh, actually, 2 schools that I missed. Somers Central School District was closed yesterday, and they're starting, there's some question as to whether or not they will be open for the rest of the week. And some other notes to be aware of. A Connecticut soda company released a coronavirus cocktail to mixed reviews. That's right, Avery Soda has released a new beverage capitalizing on the viral outbreak. We wonder if Corona Beer will do that as well. And they've analyzed, some NBC News analyzed 150 coronavirus deaths. They were in older people, and that doesn't mean that age in and of itself is a risk factor, but nonetheless, the people who've died were all elderly or had compromised immune systems in some way. Many sufferers are symptoms-free for 5, even if you get it seriously, they're symptom-free for 5 days after contracting the virus. That is until enough virus builds up in the system. And what is the cost of getting tested and treated for the coronavirus? People aren't really sure right now. That's why the president's looking at maybe giving us a short-term tax break. And one last item. Hey, Doc, you can close the door again? We were just airing it out. Your phone can carry the coronavirus for up to 9 days. So please be careful to clean your iPhone. Here's what the Apple update is updating the public about their iPhones. It's not immune, the phone is. Again, it could stay on there for 9 days. The iPhone maker on Monday updated its website with instructions for cleaning the devices. And it's okay to use alcohol wipes as the viral epidemic grows. Now, a lot of people are saying, I can't get my Purell. I can't get those wipes. Well, a couple of little cheats for you. If you go to a place like Costco or most of the other, a lot of department stores have those little eyeglass cleaning kits. And the little wipes, those are alcohol wipes. In fact, the very first time I used one, I got a flashback to when I was a little kid getting my shots in school, Dr. Breslin. The smell of alcohol bringing back, the sting in my arm, believe it or not, must somehow body memory, the sting in my arm and the smell of that. So let's get reset here. It is 9:09. He's a couple of minutes late, but he's a busy man. But he doesn't have school today, and we had stuff to cover. In fact, we'll ask him about that as we start. As I told you, though, earlier, we had 3 things for Professor Jack Breslin, actually 2 things. And before I introduce him, I will remind you of what they are. And I'm going to start with the troubling one first, because the other one's a layup in my view. The troubling one is, one of the great lines in history, Professor, is one form of tyranny is often replaced by another. I'm a supporter of the Me Too movement, as anyone with a good conscience would be. But do they realize that in stopping, and this is rhetorical now, you'll get to answer it for real, that in stopping the publication of Woody Allen's book, they're no better than the powerful people that they themselves criticize? That's number one. And number 2, the president is suing CNN. He's suing the New York Times. He's suing the Washington Post for libel. I can't imagine that he'll get anywhere with those. And it is with pleasure that I invite to the broadcast once again one of our favorite people. He's a professor of mass common ethics at Iona College. Please welcome Dr. Professor Jack Breslin. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Bob.
It's good to see you.
Well, thank you, sir. Likewise.
So now you guys have canceled classes for how long?
Well, we started break early. However...
Oh, so you started... This goes right into spring break. The kids must be thrilled.
We have virtual classes. So I'm on a Monday, Wednesday schedule. So I'm coming up with a virtual class for Wednesday.
Oh.
And
now, how are you going to do that? Like on Facebook?
No, on what we call Blackboard. It is like a class website, and we have a discussion board question, and then there's a written assignment based on certain readings that I give. So, we still have a class, but we're just not on a campus.
Okay. Well, again, Blackboard is
How many are going to do it?
well, now Blackboard is an interactive thing, but you won't know if they're there, will you? Or do they have to sign up? Or
Well, with discussion board, you log on and you post your question. But then there's others where you have a virtual classroom where people actually do have to log on and be there and participate.
Okay. How do you know? Oh, they have to log on.
Yeah,
But how do we know that? Let's see. Now you have a PhD. You're a bright guy, and
That
I
doesn't mean I'm a
and
bright
I have no.
guy.
But here's the point.
You
I
should
have
see some that got PhDs.
no. I know, but I have the brain the size of a thimble. So what's to stop me from giving you a couple of $100 to be me when I take a test online or something like that?
That is a concern. Again, I am not a spokesperson for Iona College. I'm just a simple little professor. And I do adjunct where I have a virtual classroom down with CUNY School of Professional Studies. I've been doing that about 10 years. And it's totally online. I have never met a single student in that time. I've talked to some online.
I've done it myself. Just a full disclosure for the New York Institute of Finance, I have managed classes with students. Although it was one-on-one, but nonetheless, I didn't really know who they were. Never met them.
Yeah, that's a concern I've had over the years. Is how do you tell whether or not the real person is doing the work? And there really isn't.
It's just all on faith.
Yeah, and there's times where we do like a live chat classroom, and because with the particular program, it's all returning adults, as they call it. Everybody is over 25 and 30 and even older than that. They have families, they have jobs, they're in different time zones, different countries. It's very difficult to get a common time where everybody can do a live chat. So I don't do that often because I don't even get 50%. And then other students feel as if they're being penalized if they don't participate in live chat. So I rely on discussion board where you have to make 5 posts per week. 3 of them your own
Actually, that
idea.
makes sense because they've got to do the work to do the post.
Yeah, in reaction to the questions. And the questions are based on the readings. So there are some, in due respect, you can tell they don't do the readings. This is not Iona. This is, another school.
This is another school where you're an adjunct.
And my colleagues who do this for other schools say the same thing, that there are some, a very small percentage, that just go on and do the 5 posts and it's bye-bye. And there's this little tracking device whether you can tell if they went on the readings or not.
I see.
And then when you challenge them, oh, yeah, I did. Oh, okay, fine. Then they do the minimal type of posts, and then you don't see them. You open it up on Monday at 9. It closes a minute before midnight on Sunday, and they'll log on like today. They'll do a quickie little thing, and that's it. All right, fine. If that's the way you want to do it, you'll still get your A, but what are you going to get out of it? And then there's written assignments. It's an ethics course that I do right now, and I've done a part 2 to Intro to Mass Comm and a law course as well. And the weekly assignments are in the law course like case briefs from court cases or hypothetical answers where you got to read the stuff in order to answer those. And again, how do you know they're not getting, Cousin Willie, who's a lawyer, to go and answer them for them? You don't know. You can't
that's
do
just
that.
the way it is.
You can't use Turnitin. There's estimates of how many thousands of professional cheaters out there who will write a thesis, a dissertation for you, a term paper, and it's totally original.
Yes, but
So
still,
it won't
but doesn't
come
it,
up.
right? But a dissertation still needs to be orally defended, though. So doesn't it for PhD?
There are online
Oh no,
doctoral
even
programs
that really?
now.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness.
Some of them will meet in person for a week during the summer. And, there's in a ballroom or something like that. One of my colleagues got one
How
of those.
long does that take anyway? Since I don't have a PhD.
It depends on the program and how much time you can put in, how many courses you get in. I've had colleagues who did it in 3 years.
No, but what about
4
the
years.
actual verbal defense of it, the verbal dissertation?
Again, I don't know how they handle that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into.
I know for the comprehensive exams, I proctored an exam for one of my colleagues.
Okay. There you go. Professor Jack Breslin telling us what it's like to, work with remote students. Professor, and I just have to tell you from the heart, because I don't know if it's an ethics question. It certainly is an issue of hypocrisy. Maybe I'm all wet. But I was very disappointed in, and I forget his name, in the young man who very famously and righteously and justifiably wrote a book and outed Mr. Weinstein and others, and who is a justifiable and righteous champion of the Me Too movement. But then he goes and uses that power to stifle, and I don't know if you're aware of this yet, Woody Allen's book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's...
That's one of the biggest hypocrisies I've ever seen, because because one of the things about the Me Too movement that people still don't get and that I admire, in the Me Too movement, it's a case of women rightly saying, hey, finally, people are realizing what power does and how it's misused. And that is even a larger issue that goes beyond the Me Too movement. It's in this industry, even who gets jobs. You've worked in this industry. It's in the college. It's in your industry. It's in every industry. The abuse of power and the nonsense that takes place, and the unfairness inherent in that, and the injustice inherent in that. What do we do or say when one of the champions of that abuse of power uses his power the same way? How does he not get it?
Well, didn't he have a personal interest in that particular case?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, okay. Just make sure I have the right person.
Yeah, no, because I just
brain.
forgot his name because my head's shot. But his personal interest is that his sister insisted, and most of the psychiatrists that dealt with it, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, said it was baloney, but that his sister was abused by Woody Allen.
Okay, so there would be some that say, oh, he's using his personal power vindictively.
Yeah, because he has a book,
Yeah,
because he says,
recuse
I won't let
himself.
you publish anymore.
Now, as I've said before, I believe in free speech. I'm a First Amendment advocate. And if Woody Allen wants to publish a book, he should be able to publish that book.
Well, and you know what? He certainly has enough money to publish it himself if he
Or
wants.
he can't find a publisher. I'm sure he's got the money to self-publish.
Right. No, but the hypocrisy is of a man championing a cause that he then does the very same thing that the people in power have done to women and others over the years, using his position to prevent something he doesn't want. Mm-hmm. I have trouble with those kinds of things. The principles should come before your personal interests, it seems to me.
Well,
and the Me Too movement backed them wholeheartedly. They all walked out. All the people in a publishing house, the employees of a publishing house, walk out to stop the publishing of a book. I want to bang my head against the wall. So how do those people ever go out and criticize the president for what he does?
Okay, so I'm
just asking you, maybe I'm all wet, but it drives me nuts.
I'll raise my hand like I do in class. I see your point, and I agree with you that walking out in that sense because of something someone has allegedly done, I don't see that is really the purpose of a publishing house, I guess would be the sentence. Again, they publish all kind of books. Not all are written by people that who are necessarily liked by all. And for someone to come out and, as you say, assert that power for a personal situation, I don't know if that is really something that publishing house should have done.
All right. Well, thank you, because
But I still. But in comparison to some other things where people have been convicted, I don't believe Woody Allen was ever convicted in a court of law.
No, he was not. In fact, he was vindicated by psychology. Look, I don't even know. I'm not defending him. I'm defending his right to publish a book and the hypocrisy of a publisher to not publish. To me, and maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Maybe the American ship has sailed, and a part of me believes that. But these are the same people that will yell at Donald Trump for my next topic, which is
I applaud what the Me Too movement has done.
Of course, but isn't it a shame that we have to say that for fear of being attacked by it?
But there is a line that should not be crossed.
That they crossed.
And they did.
Yeah. That's okay. So I'm not totally crazy because, see, these are the things about America that I hold dear, Doctor. It really bothered me that this guy who had accomplished so much and so bravely and went out there, and then he goes and does the same gosh damn thing. All right. Let's go to the next thing. And by the way, those are the kinds of things that conservatives say, and say, I'm voting for Trump. They're no better than he is.
Yeah, or you get into the discussion and they bring up Hillary.
Right. So you go to that.
It's like Hillary isn't president, he is.
No, they'll bring that's the what about crowd.
Yeah.
You know, it's what about in 1952? Okay. The president, and this irritates me no less. In fact, it irritated me more, except that I thought more of Dylan, whatever his name is. Dylan, whatever his last name is. The president is suing CNN, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. Now, that's not going to go anywhere, and he obviously knows it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, he don't care. Actually, it's his campaign. I've been covering this for a couple of weeks in class because one of the challenges I have in my media law and ethics class with my excellent students is, why do we have to take this course, especially with Breslin? And from the first moment they walk in, I try to show that not only is this relevant for your careers, and some of the students come from the pre-law program as well, so they're going to law school, but it also as a citizen. One of my colleagues, Eric Uglin at University of Marquette, Marquette University, wrote an excellent piece for communication law and policy about that very fact, that media law classes help them prepare to better participate in our democracy, because free speech and free press are vital for our democracy to thrive. Now, as far as the standard of what your public figure, all-purpose public figure, Donald Trump has been an all-purpose public figure since the day he was born, he has to prove actual malice. Knowing reckless falsehood, a very difficult standard that was set by 1964 New York Times versus Sullivan. That is still the standard and is imitated in some countries. Others do not adopt it, where you got to know it's false when you said it because you made it up, or you were reckless with regard to checking it out. Now, in these cases, these are opinion pieces. Opinion pieces do have First Amendment protection. But when they're based on verifiable facts and the facts prove to be false, then there could be a problem. It is very difficult, if not impossible, for a president of the United States to win a libel suit against a major media outlet. From my perspective, however, as a First Amendment advocate, this troubles me deeply.
What troubles you? This lawsuits?
That a sitting president would sue the media.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
In our democracy.
Yes, it should.
Now, in our little chat room, we are doing a little research. Has a sitting American president ever sued the media? Going back to when there was the false report about Bush's service in the Texas National Guard. And one of my students walked into class and said, yeah, Bush is going to sue CBS. And I said, well, great that you mentioned that. What does he have to prove? All right, actual malice. He never did sue CBS. It brought down, a couple of,
it brought down Dan Rather.
Yeah.
Well, that's because they didn't check a fact. But wasn't it actually true?
Well, that would be actual
Ultimately,
malice then.
yeah.
If you don't check it out, that is knowing reckless falsehood. Now, for an ordinary person, the standard is negligence in most states, which is rather difficult. It's easier to prove. So a public figure, a public plaintiff, has a very difficult time winning a suit where there is actual malice. Now, the current president is making himself known as being the first president that we can figure out who has sued the media. Now, Teddy Roosevelt was involved in a criminal libel suit where he was sued after he was president. And in my book, I talk about that particular case. However, a sitting president, this has a chilling effect on the media. The threat of litigation can shut down a small media outlet because of the resources, the time, and the money it takes to defend the suit. Now, in this case, you got three outlets that get litigation against them all the time. They defend these cases.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not this will ever go into a courtroom, whether it will be dismissed on declaratory judgment, where you go in and say that, there's no defamation involved here, case dismissed, or in some cases not a case at all, that they won't, these are not defamatory words. That is one of the elements of libel as well.
Mm-hmm.
You got to prove that it's false and it harmed you, that people would think less of you, it would hurt your reputation because of what they said, the words themselves. And there's no way that it could prove this, because there's been so much written about this. And even went to the House of Representatives of the United States Senate, quid pro quo, was there any? Well, he's got to prove, the burden is on him. The plaintiff must show that this is false, that no, I did not do a quid pro quo. And again, that's very difficult to prove, because what would be considered truth in a news story is much different from verifying truth in a court of law with witnesses and evidence. So, again, as a private citizen, Donald Trump has been very litigious over the years, and I don't think he ever won one of these suits. Probably the one that got the most attention was when Bill Maher said that if Trump, as a private citizen, before he was president, if Trump could prove that he was not directly descended from orangutan, he would donate $1 million to Trump's favorite charity, namely him. No, it's to his favorite charity. So Trump sues. Never went anyplace. No, it just went away. Again, what a thin skin. The guy's making a joke, and he goes, that is not what our courts are for. And that's why our courts are so overwhelmed with these frivolous suits. Now, a sitting president suing 3 major outlets, and probably going to be more, he's, the government isn't paying for it. It's his campaign that's paying for it, if that's the way they want to spend their money. And if they think that's going to chill the media from criticizing him, which is the whole idea behind it, well, in the Sullivan case, that was the reason that Sullivan and his pals sued the New York Times and lost.
No, but it does
because of an ad in the South that did not name Sullivan, but supported the civil rights workers and talked about the abuse of the civil rights workers. And Sullivan said, well, even though my name's not in there, people know who I am. Even though there was only 6 copies of the New York Times snail-mailed into Montgomery, Alabama every day. So as a result, people, when we're coming up to the actual Mailist standard, there are those such as my beloved mentor, Donald Gilmore, a First Amendment genius, who in his book, Power, Publicity, and Abuse of Libel, said people like a president, a senator, a mayor, an athlete, a celebrity who make their living out of publicity, out of being famous, they should not even have the actual malice remedy. They should not be able to sue at all. And this is an example.
It really is an example of that. But when you sue someone, though, it costs them money. A lot of people have been wronged in this world. They can't do anything about it because they can't afford a lawyer. Conversely, the New York Times, I'm sure it doesn't want a big chunk of its budget to be defending lawsuits.
Right. That's what they have, a legal department. In my travels where I go to the Practicing Law Institute in New York, I am not an attorney. I'm not licensed to practice law, but I do go, like a lot of other professors do, to continuing legal education. Every year there is a 2-day workshop in the latest happenings, events, cases from communications law, just like they offer for every other practice you could name. And I've met lawyers who work for all those media outlets that are being sued. And that's all they do all day, is they litigate cases where their media publication is being sued by somebody. So it's common that they get lawsuits, libel suits, privacy suits, infringement of copyright, a whole list of things. But for a sitting president to sue because they don't like what they said, what you said is false. Okay, the burden is on you to prove it's false.
I always thought
Obama
would have had a case about the Bertha thing.
Okay, just to clarify, that it's not just that it's false, because false speech, in some cases, such as when they can't prove actual malice, does have First Amendment protection. if you didn't know it was false, if you didn't make it up, if you didn't check it out in the standards of reasonable journalism, and the plaintiff can prove with clear and convincing evidence, with convincing clarity, that it was.
Well, how do you
malice.
even keep that from being a trial case? I mean, Rush Limbaugh, for the longest time, intimated that Hillary Clinton killed Vince Foster.
Mm-hmm. Or the Georgetown student who testified, and he called her nasty names that I won't repeat on the air.
Right.
Did she have the resources to sue him? Because what would happen with the standard is she would have to prove that she was not those nasty words, and that would mean that her whole life goes on display. Now, one of the articles I use in class, when Jose Canseco, who will never make the Hall of Fame, wrote his book, Juiced Rampant
right,
Roids,
Juiced.
There was a piece in the Times that very eloquently explained what those ball players that he named in the book would have to prove. And I use it in class to show that, they got to prove actual malice. They got to show that what Canseco wrote, he knew it was false. That he was writing something he knew was false. That's a very difficult standard to prove. Or he just made it up. So he said that his former teammates, these guys, used it, which it turned out they all did. But what brings out in the article is what the plaintiff's lawyers will say. If you are totally innocent, if you had nothing to do with steroids, absolutely, and this is, an unmitigated lie, okay, fine, go and sue him. But first, you have to remember that when something is said, all right, for a week or so it's in the news, then everybody forgets. But when you sue, it comes out again, and it can last for years. And you have to consider that your life as the plaintiff goes on public display. Any skeletons in your closet,
they're going to come out.
So what you have to consider, the last line of the article, is it worth the time and the money, and I add, and the pain of the litigation? Is it worth it? Because you might lose. You probably will lose when you are trying to prove that the media outlet, used actual malice. But there are cases where public plaintiffs have won. There are cases where they have won. And that's part of Gilmore's argument, that in these cases, when the public plaintiff does win and there's these massive damage awards, they can stifle the media. They will shut down certain media outlets that lose, and it'll have a chilling effect on others that, oh, yeah, we got the story, and this also happens with privacy. We got the story, we know it's true, but they're going to sue us, and why should we back off? So, for example, when I was working upstate freelancing for a little giveaway paper there was an incident where a young man had come from a country in Africa to play basketball at a small high school through a group that did that. He heard it on the radio in his country, contact us, you can come to America to play basketball at a small high school, and then we will help get you into a mid-major school. And so this young man came over, and it was not an academic exchange. That the league had a rule that it had to be an academic exchange. You couldn't bring anybody to play sports because they had a problem with European soccer players coming over. So this was clearly a violation of league rules. That he said, I heard on the radio, this group, and I contacted the group. They gave me this list of players that they had brought over who went to the small schools and then got scholarships to mid-major schools. But when I was interviewing the people at the school, I could tell the coach was lying. But for a $150 story, where I did not have libel insurance, even though I couldn't get it with my homeowner's policy, even if I did have the libel insurance, I would have had to slap down anywhere between a $500 and a $1,000 deductible.
Yeah.
Go and hire a lawyer in a small town upstate where, in due respect to the bar, I probably knew from our First Amendment law than he or she did.
Yeah.
And possibly lose. That I toned down the story. I chickened out. I did not use the quote from the coach, even though I knew he was lying. Now, my buddy who worked for the competing paper, whom I scooped, said, if I got that story, I would have been all over it like a cheap suit. And I said, yeah, because you wouldn't, even if your name was on that lawsuit, the paper would have defended you. I did not have that.
Well, no, you did not.
So I toned down the story, the threat of litigation.
Well, we all tone down stories occasionally. And you should never go forward if you have even the least bit of doubt. But, all right. Let's take this to what's going on today in America. It is 9:36 with Professor Jack Breslin, Mass Communications and Ethics Professor at Iona College, a PhD, obviously, Dr. Breslin. Every morning when I come in during this coronavirus, I realize I have a dual obligation to report the facts, but place them in a sensible context. And that's a difficult balance because the top stories each day, 4 or 5 of them, are about the virus. They're about how many people have it. They're about who's getting it next, what's closed, what's not. And the problem is that when you do those stories, it sounds like Armageddon. But when you place them in the larger sense, I mean, I'll give you an analogy. And this is in my view, but that's just a view now. This is a serious issue because governments have a responsibility to keep you from tripping on that curb when you leave the studio. We have a responsibility. I have a responsibility here. Make sure you don't trip over anything or fall when you leave. I have insurance for that. The government has to treat this like if 10 people get sick because we didn't do what we should do, even if it's mildly sick, we're accountable. That's news. But it's not the Black Plague. It's not yellow fever. It's not, the Black Death. It's not yellow fever. It's not SARS. It's not MRSA. But yet we've got a country in panic. It's very difficult to do all those stories and not have people panic. What is the responsibility of the press? And there's a dynamic in the press that even goes beyond ethics, which is everybody's reporting it, so you have to report it too. How are we to manage this?
Interesting you brought that up because that was the big topic yesterday in my 3 classes. I had my 2 intro to mass comm classes and media law. And I got a good discussion going. I was very proud of myself. I think Trump said that one time.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of myself.
No kidding.
That I wanted to help address their concerns. So I wanted to give them the opportunity to express their fears and so forth and their families. And then brought in the role of the media. So the example I gave, and I don't know if I should say what station it was, but one of the New York major news outlets affiliate, it was Channel 7. Their mobile truck was parked up by Young Israel, by the bagel shop, traditional bagel up there. And I live right next door there. So I came out in the morning, and there it was. Okay, fine. Now, as my friends kid me, well, you'd never met a microphone or camera you didn't like. Did you climb inside the truck and say, hi, interview me? No. That's the kind of thing that they'll talk to you for a minute and a half, and then they'll take that little nasty sound bite. And, oh, you teach at Iona. Oh, well, what about? And they take that little sentence, and they pull it out, and then it's like, did you say? Well, yeah, I did, but within the context of a minute and a half interview. Throughout the day, the truck was still there. So I went and tuned in, and sure enough, there was a live shot at 12, the live shot at 5, live shot at 6, and the live shot at 11
At 11.
There the total day. But there was nothing new.
No.
What were they there for? They must have a hell of a lot of money. And, remember
when you were in TV and my short time in TV, the first thing they taught us when we got out to a scene was to take a picture of the street sign and a building, a well-known building, and so we could say, we're there.
Right. And as one of my friends said once that, I said, well, when you're out like that, there's no story. What do you do all day? Well, her answer is, I married the cameraman.
Yeah, no,
So that's how their romance started. Anyway, they interviewed a couple of people at Young Israel, a couple of folks because of what had happened to one of the restaurants up there being, shocked, as they call it.
Yes.
And the impact that it had on the other restaurants there on that little area of North Avenue. and were virtually empty, those nights. So you're sitting there waiting for something to happen. Okay, aren't there other elements of the story to play up? And there is that issue, even with the medium that we are using right now, that people will start talking and start going out of their areas of expertise.
That's what happens.
And bringing on so-called experts who are merely self-promoters who have the degrees and all that stuff, but they want to be
that's
famous.
it's like they're doctors in name only. I know that.
Right, and even people who have a medical show that this is not their area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So just move on and don't cause a panic with you speculating. And then people like our friend Mr. Limbaugh, who said it's no worse than the common cold. Okay, where's this expertise to get that? So we talked about that element of how you got to fill the news hole, and there are times where rumors become news and will cause a panic. So you a certain amount of restraint, and you stick to what you know and to people that you know are verifiable experts that are speaking what is the latest truth and what can be done. Now, the other issue, from my little unscientific survey of when the patient in New Rochelle, the first one to get the attorney, from my quickie little search, the only New York media outlet to not only identify him, but have a photo of him and his wife.
It was a New York Post.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it.
And my students guessed that one. So, and it's just a full disclosure, I worked at Fox. And, I had dealings with Channel 5 and the Post. And there were times after I had to deal with them, I would say I hung up the phone and I wanted to take a shower. Just a gross, just no ethical foundation at all. And just doing things that, there was one situation where a family of a murder victim had complained that this show called, it was a spinoff of Current Affairs called The Reporters. They said they were not going to do a reenactment. And it turned out they did. And this gentleman who was involved in the early days of development of Fox News, I don't know what happened with him, because he wasn't there when, Ailes took over and so forth. He said, "Oh no, it's a point of view." And I'm going, what? You used a camera? Oh, the point of view was from the victim. What it was like to be murdered. That's not a reenactment? So I just, fortunately, there was not a big media scare over it. It was just this one station in Miami that jumped on. That was it. But there, just a total lack of any kind of moral fiber. That they were just lying.
What about
so
what do you see now?
Back to the issue. We brought this up in class. The privacy issue there. All right, legally, they're covered. They can print that photograph. But from the ethical perspective, now back to the legal for a second, what they would have to show is it's not a matter of legitimate public concern. Well, they would argue that, he is the patient. He might have infected people. People should know who he is. But then you have to weigh the interest of privacy against that. And so from the ethical perspective, that's why the rest of the New York media can get that photo and they can identify him, but they have not. But to post it or to sell newspapers and get people to their website, they chose to print it. And my classes and me disagree with that decision.
They did disagree with that decision. Well, doesn't the HIPAA law prevent them from doing that as well?
I'm not familiar with that law.
It's the law about
to apply that.
About sharing.
Well, that would be sharing
medical information.
Medical information. You're not necessarily identifying the patient because he has that, and that would can be considered newsworthy, a matter of legitimate public concern.
Okay.
And also, getting into libel, is it actually harming him? Well, there he has become an involuntary public figure. So publishing the photograph, I don't think would be any kind of HIPAA violation. Okay. And again, I'm not that familiar with that area of law.
What about the way the media is handling it in general?
There are those that are being very responsible. There are those that
describe responsible.
That you stick to the latest events. You stick to verified experts. You don't say something unless you know it is a fact. And you don't speculate when you really don't have any grounds to make a particular statement.
Okay. How do you, if you're doing 4 or 5 stories in a row that you think the very nature of them is as true as they may be, need to be placed in context, do you go ahead and place it in context? For example, this virus has for a while, and it's back, I think, to 2%, had a fatality rate of 2%. The regular flu has like 1/4%, the standard flu. That's important. It's context. It's also not catastrophic. It's not the malevolent Black Death. Do you say that?
My students were informed about this.
Yes.
And there were some that raised and said, the mortality rate of it and the recovery rate is most people do recover from
Yes.
it. It is those who have a pre-existing condition or a weakness in their immune system or are over 65. Like
Shut up.
And so they are.
You would go there.
They are more vulnerable. And my students knew that, and they brought that out. So when you say that the mortality rate's over, you have to put it into context and add that second part that people who are most vulnerable or elderly or a lot of immune systems are the ones that, from the information we have, are the ones who pass away.
Now, how do you factor in? There's an only way for me to do that is anecdotal because governments have to worry. There was this place where I used to rollerblade, and I played hockey there as a young man, and well into my 40s because I still play. I would rollerblade to stay in shape, and people had been doing it for 50 years, 100 years, but finally, they came along. And they put benches in and stuff like that and more or less compromised it. It was no longer a skating rink. And people came to me and they said, oh, this is our skating rink, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, it was never safe to begin with. You had the swings over there and these brick columns on the side, blah, 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 blah. Well, we should go complain. I said, there's no sense doing it anymore because it is a hazard. It was a hazard before, but it was a grandfathered hazard. Now that it's been that someone has done something and something's complained, you can't do anything about it because the government has to protect themselves from being sued. Ergo, my point is that the government, and I understand this, will go to great lengths to defend itself from not having done the best job to keep us safe. And so we lost that rink, and it was never going to come back. It couldn't. How do we, or people want to say, oh, we want the right to skate there anyway, even with the benches. I said, well, you're going to run people over? You just can't. How do we keep it from becoming too big a story because the government has to do all that it does? For example, if the government didn't do anything, how much worse would it be?
Right now?
Yeah.
I think it'd be very worse.
Okay. But my point is, though, define worse.
Well, I think that people would not be taking the precautions that they are.
Okay.
And that could lead to exposure that could be prevented by some of the measures that are being taken.
Okay.
For example, the cruise ship.
Okay, yeah, that was very wise. And now, do we close all the schools? Do we close all the businesses? This is rhetorical. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know. I just know that the government, it's like with that rink. Once they put that first bench in, we were done. Once you say don't go to a crowded building, every crowded building is going to get ruled out. Now, do we ever reach a point where the solution is a bigger problem than the problem itself?
Well, in the interest of being overcautious.
Yes.
That is why these closures are taking place.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the answer is, but the press has to play a role. Are you satisfied with the way the press has behaved by and large in this instance?
Yeah, by and large.
Yeah, okay.
But the examples that I gave, I don't think they behaved.
Okay,
and
no, they didn't.
Something that they should not have done, simply to sell newspapers.
Now, let's go back to Fox News. I take a lot of heat for criticizing them, but it's heat I gladly take. I'm very comfortable with my criticism of them. On the other hand, people lie in different ways. Rachel Maddow generally speaking, tells the truth about the facts, but puts a spin on it that is unfair. See, that's what, it's different. Fox News plays games with the facts. Is there any other solution other than more is better?
Oh, we can license the media.
Shouldn't do that.
Absolutely.
And that's why I defend Fox News' right to exist, but I defend my right to criticize them and hold them accountable.
Not in our democracy where we have a First Amendment that says Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech or freedom of the press.
If we allowed not just this president, any president, what would they do to the press if they could?
That what?
What would they do to the press if there were no law against it?
We would not have a democracy.
We wouldn't.
You would have a situation where the media is simply an arm of the government, and people are punished for criticizing seditious libel. And that happened in this country, that John Peter Zenger, who was a German immigrant printer and was hired to print information by two attorneys in New York. This was during the days of when we were a British colony. And he was tried and acquitted for seditious libel. Now, he didn't write the stories. It was the two attorneys that did. And when he got thrown in jail, they did arrange for his defense. And a Philadelphia lawyer by the name of Andrew Hamilton, not the guy who's got the musical, Alexander, and he used the concept of people should be able to speak their minds and tell the truth without fear of being punished, a justifiable truth. And even though at the time the libel law was weighed far against the defendant, the jury acquitted Zenger. That what he said was true, that the governor at the time, Governor Cosby, was incompetent. And, the French ships who were spying on the fortifications at the battery and, him hiring his incompetent cronies and the fact that he'd been hired, made the governor in the first place was a joke. Even though he had not wrote those articles, he did publish them. He was in jail for over a year, couldn't even have his family visit him, and he was acquitted because of Hamilton's defense of justifiable truth. Now, it didn't change the law at the time, but it was a foundation that speaking the truth, you should not be punished.
Well, unless you work in the White House. you will be punished. All right, before we go, and I ask you this each time you're here because I feel a little better, depending on your answer. You still comfortable that free speech is alive and well in these Americas? How much is it under attack when the president is suing major newspapers?
As I posed to my students on discussion board in the beginning of the semester, the question, First Amendment thriving or threatened? And then I periodically put it up again. I have a new topic each week, but periodically as kind of a bonus question to pick up a few extra points, I put that question up again. And so I did that last night as I was preparing the virtual classroom for this week, and I'm interested to see what they say. Because in the discussion, they said threatened, that a president sues the media. He's allowed to do it. But the fact that a sitting president, the first time ever, as we can determine, and again, going through my feeble brain, trying to figure out, was there ever a president that did that? And the answer is no, that we can see. There was the Sedition Act under the Adams administration, but that was more punishment after the fact that if you criticize, if you say something defamatory, harmful, you're going to be thrown in jail. And there were 10 editors, I think, who were thrown in jail. And the law was on the books for 2 years. When Jefferson became president, the law had expired because it was only good for 2 years. The Congress did not renew it. And Jefferson pardoned the editors and gave back the fines. A Vermont congressman was thrown in jail because of a letter to the editor he wrote criticizing Adams that was published in the Bennington Herald. Black mark on our press freedom. So we don't want that. Now, why didn't the Supreme Court declare that unconstitutional? Because at the time, that was pre-Marbury versus Madison. And at the time, the Supreme Court didn't even have their own building. They met in a tavern. And one of the founding members of the Supreme Court, James Wilson, is on my family tree. I knew you'd be impressed. That's why I told you.
Oh, my goodness.
Uncle
Excuse me. So
Yeah.
Uncle Jimmy is where these advocates, or rather your predilection to love the law as it regards free speech comes
Good
from.
old Uncle Jimmy, yeah. When I take
James.
with the water polo team, we go down to play Villanova, and a lot of times we go down to Independence Mall, and I say to them, "You want me, my Uncle Jimmy?" And they're like, "Huh?" So we go to our street, we walk in, I know where the grave is. I said, "This is my Uncle Jimmy." "Oh, you know this guy?"
One last question.
No, he's dead. But he signed the Constitution and the Declaration of
Okay,
Independence.
one last question. Now that we know you have forefathers, if you will, who signed
And
that
Uncle
Declaration.
Sam, the guy they based Uncle Sam.
You're kidding?
Sam Wilson.
That's
He's
the same
on
guy?
tree. Oh, no, not different
That's
guy,
another
but
guy.
on the same tree.
On the same
so one
family
of these
tree?
days, I did a paper about James Wilson once. One of these days, I'm going to
You
do
got to
something
go do
about
the ancestry
Uncle
thing.
Sam.
You're going to have to do that. All right.
But if I figure out how to do it.
You know how radio and TV works, and I was having a production session, and I wanted to do something out at the train station, and I was talked out of it. I wanted to go out there with a microphone and ask people if they understood what a Republican form of government was. And they said, "Don't do it." They said, "No one's going to know, and you're going to embarrass them." A, B, they're just going to shake their heads and move on. You're not going to get any real good answers, and you're going to be disappointed and depressed. Were they right?
Yes, because in my days with Letterman and other talk shows, I didn't like those segments. And when Leno would do it and so forth, and Letterman, where they knew the answer to the question.
Well, see,
They were
I
just
didn't.
trying to-
I wanted to just. I wasn't trying to embarrass
and then
anyone.
putting
I genuinely
people on the air.
No, but see, I genuinely wanted to know, and I would have even not printed it or not used it. My biggest concern with Trump supporters is if they understand his threat to that.
So, with a microphone, no. But the Freedom Forum, part of the First Amendment Center, does an annual survey called the State of the First Amendment. You know, you can look it up. And they have a series of questions. And the first one is how many of the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment you can name. And most people will get press or speech or religion.
That's good.
Not all will get petition and assembly. But the amount of people who can't name any of them, that kind of goes into that question, you know, Republican form of government.
No, because it's really, really important, and it extends to every level. And I said that to Trump supporters, but it applies to the far left as well. Because if you don't understand a Republican form of government, it's like the people who will complain. The story I always use is, you know, we have the wonderful diner down there now, the New Rochelle diner, but there used to be a diner close by called the Thruway Diner. And when that diner was torn down, I got 1 million phone calls. The government should do something about this. Well, it's private enterprise.
Yeah.
I said, well, but the mayor should. I said, no. The council, you know, I said, no, that's not. That's how free enterprise works. That has to be separate. The guy wants to sell it and make a profit. The mayor doesn't call him up and say, I am king, you can't do it. Similarly, why do we have all these buildings? New buildings, because every single member of the city council voted to do it. But they can't. You voted them in. How is that? Republican form of government. It's not a direct democracy, blah, blah, blah. That troubles me because if you don't understand that, you're walking around with your head half up your butt. And I'm not saying I always did either.
That is the challenge of convincing people that their vote counts.
Doesn't it?
You know, that when Bush got back in the second time, some of my students were very disappointed that they had voted, and you know, his challenger took the state of New York and got those electoral votes, but he was still managed to get the rest of the votes in order to get back in. And they said, "Why should we bother?" I said, "You bothered because you have that constitutional right to do that, and the candidate that you voted for did carry your state."
Incidentally,
But, you know, the Electoral College, that's a whole other debate.
I wrote a note that I didn't follow up on. Ultimately, what got rather? Was his story not true? Was it ever disproved? Or was it simply that it wasn't checked?
Oh, it was certainly disproved.
Yes.
That this person had fabricated it. It came down to the selectric ball of the typewriter, that they used a new computer, whereas the original report was done with a selector typewriter. I even still have mine, even though it doesn't work. With remember those little
I remember
elements,
very
the
well,
little ball,
sure, yeah.
And so that's how they caught it. That an expert in analyzing it said, "Wait a minute, that doesn't match, because the original and was done with a selector typewriter, and this was done with."
Now
a
his
computer.
producer should have caught that.
Yes.
Is that the assumption?
I mean, there was a movie about it, and the whole thing was they were just sloppy in the rush to get the story on the air, that there were things that they did not check. And to this day, I'm sure the producer thinks that she was not properly defended by CBS, and from the movie and other things, I think that they did not support her, that she went as far as she could.
See, my point is, was it understandable? Was it an understandable mistake? That's the question.
I think that it was. But when the way the story was told and in the aftermath in the investigation, they were looking for the scapegoat, and it was her. And it really wasn't. It was a series of errors that took place in the pressure to get the story on the air.
And rather run with it.
Yeah, I mean, in due respect to him, how much does the correspondent or the anchor actually involved in the investigation?
Although they always get, but you know why you have to wear it? Because a lot of them wear the executive producer mantle as well as being the anchor, so you got to pay. Professor, it is always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Professor Jack Breslin, everyone, Mass Communications and Ethics at Iona College. Thank you for taking us to school once again, sir.
Mike, there'll be a quiz.
Okay, there'll be a quiz tomorrow. Alrighty, that slams the lid on things for today. Tomorrow is always an exciting day. A lot of good guests. A.J. Woodson will be here. We'll get the full story on Mount Vernon. We also will talk with Harlan Ullman and see how the virus is affecting the world at large. So that's all tomorrow. Today we want to thank our guests: Vince Russo, Mike Edelman, Mike Duffy, Jake Schaefer, Sean Patterson, Howard, Delphine Husler, and Jack Breslin, of course. And today's program was supported by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. I'm Bob Marrone. We'll see you tomorrow. Now, remember, this is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. You've been listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. We just completed our long-form segment. We'll see you all tomorrow at 6:30.